Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Lies. Derek Whitmore had built his life on precision. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., he ran 5 miles through the wealthy suburbs of Millbrook Heights. By 6:45, he was showered and reviewing financial reports for his private investigation firm, Whitmore Securities. Derek had spent 15 years building his business from nothing, specializing in corporate espionage and infidelity cases. The irony wasn't lost on him that he made his fortune exposing other people's lies while living blind to his own family's deceptions. At 42, Derek stood 6'2" with steel gray eyes that had seen too much human weakness. His military background and Army intelligence had taught him patience, observation, and most importantly, that everyone had secrets worth discovering. He'd met Holly Brennan 20 years ago when she was a struggling art student with golden hair and dreams of gallery exhibitions. She seemed different from the calculating women he'd encountered in his line of work. Genuine, warm, maternal. Holly, now 39, had traded her artistic ambitions for the role of devoted wife and mother. Or so Derek believed. She spent her days volunteering at their children's schools, organizing charity galas, and maintaining their pristine colonial home. To the outside world, the Whitmores were the perfect family. Derek provided, Holly nurtured, and their children excelled. Trevor, their 23-year-old son, had recently graduated from law school and was marrying Ashley Crenshaw, daughter of a prominent judge. The wedding was set for Saturday at the exclusive Millbrook Country Club, a $200,000 affair that Derek was financing without question. Trevor had always been the golden child, valedictorian, star athlete, full scholarship to Harvard. He possessed his father's analytical mind, but lacked the edge that made Derek successful in his dangerous profession. Then there was Emma, their 11-year-old daughter, born when Derek was 31 and Holly 28. Emma was Derek's heart walking outside his body. She had inherited her mother's artistic talents, but combined them with Derek's intensity. Her paintings covered the walls of Derek's home office, splashes of color in a room dominated by surveillance equipment and case files. Emma was the reason Derek worked 16-hour days. Every case he solved, every client he protected, was for her future. What Derek didn't know was that his foundation had been cracking for years. Holly's art classes on Tuesday and Thursday evenings weren't at the community center. For the past 3 years, she'd been meeting Connor Blaze, a 35-year-old sculptor she'd reconnected with at a gallery opening. Connor was everything Derek wasn't: spontaneous, passionate, reckless. He lived in a converted warehouse downtown, creating abstract metal sculptures that Holly claimed spoke to her soul. Their affair had evolved from emotional connection to physical obsession, meeting twice weekly in Connor's studio where Holly posed for sculptures Derek would never see. Trevor knew about the affair. He'd discovered it accidentally 2 years ago when he'd followed his mother after spotting her car at Connor's studio. Rather than confronting her, Trevor saw opportunity. Holly's guilt made her generous, paying his law school expenses beyond what Derek provided, buying him a luxury car, even promising a substantial gift toward his wedding costs. Trevor had learned to weaponize his mother's shame, becoming her enabler in exchange for financial benefits. But the cruelest betrayal involved Emma. Holly had grown to resent her daughter's relationship with Derek, viewing it as competition for attention she felt entitled to. Emma's natural beauty and artistic talent reminded Holly of her own abandoned dreams, creating a poisonous jealousy that had festered for years. Holly began sabotaging Emma in subtle ways, forgetting to sign permission slips for field trips, arriving late to school events, dismissing Emma's artwork as childish scribbles. Trevor participated in this emotional abuse, seeing Emma as a threat to his inheritance. He encouraged Holly's resentment, suggesting that Derek favored Emma because she reminded him of younger women from his cases. Together, they formed an alliance against the two family members who genuinely loved each other. Derek remained oblivious, working long hours to provide for what he believed was a grateful family. His last case had been particularly demanding, exposing a mayor's corruption ring that had taken 6 months to unravel. He'd been gone most evenings, missing the subtle dynamics poisoning his home. On Wednesday evening, 3 days before Trevor's wedding, Derek returned home at 9 p.m. to find Emma in her room, working on a painting of a girl with long, flowing hair dancing in a field of sunflowers. The artwork was stunning, showing talent far beyond her years. "This is beautiful, sweetheart," Derek said, sitting on her bed. "You're going to be famous someday." Emma smiled, her green eyes, Derek's eyes, sparkling with pride. "Mom says I should focus on more practical things. She thinks art is a waste of time." Something cold settled in Derek's chest. "Your art isn't a waste of time. Never let anyone tell you that. She says I get too much attention, that it makes Trevor feel bad." Emma's voice was small, confused. Derek filed this information away, a skill honed through years of investigation. He kissed Emma's forehead, promising to hang her latest painting in his office, then went downstairs to find Holly arranging flowers in the kitchen. "How was your art class?" he asked, testing. "Oh, fine. We're working on landscapes this week." Holly didn't meet his eyes, busy with the flowers that didn't need arranging. Derek watched his wife's reflection in the window, cataloging micro-expressions he'd learned to read in suspects and cheating spouses. The slight tension in her jaw, the way she touched her neck, tells he'd missed because he'd never thought to look for them in his own home. Emma showed me her new painting. She's incredibly talented. Holly's hands stilled for a fraction of a second. She spent so much time on that stuff. She should focus on her grades. Her grades are perfect, Holly. Like everything else about her. You always take her side, Holly said, finally turning to face him. Sometimes I feel like you forget you have a son getting married this weekend. Derek studied his wife's face, still beautiful, but harder than he remembered. When had those lines around her mouth appeared? When had her eyes become so cold when discussing their daughter? "I love both our children equally," Derek said carefully. "But Emma needs our support right now. She's at a crucial age for developing confidence. She has plenty of confidence. Maybe too much." Holly's voice carried an edge Derek had never heard before. That night, Derek lay awake as Holly slept beside him, her breathing deep and peaceful, the sleep of someone without guilt or someone who'd grown comfortable with it. He replayed their conversation, Emma's comments about attention, and Trevor feeling bad, Holly's defensive responses about art class. In his business, Derek had learned that betrayal rarely came as a dramatic revelation. It accumulated in small observations, inconsistencies that painted a larger picture when assembled correctly. As Thursday dawn approached, Derek felt the familiar sensation that had made him successful in his profession, the certainty that he was living a lie. But Derek Whitmore was patient. He'd spent his career unraveling deceptions, and he knew that rushing led to mistakes. As the sun rose on Thursday morning, Derek began what would become the most important investigation of his life, discovering the truth about his own family. He had no idea how deep the betrayal ran, or how completely it would transform him. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Facade. Thursday morning began like any other, but Derek's heightened awareness turned routine interactions into evidence gathering. At breakfast, he watched Emma pour cereal with hands that trembled slightly, not from nerves, but from years of walking on eggshells. Trevor scrolled through his phone, ignoring his sister completely despite sitting across from her. Holly bustled around the kitchen, projecting busy efficiency while avoiding eye contact with anyone. "I need to pick up my tux today," Trevor announced without looking up. "Ashley wants to do a final fitting check." "I'll drive you," Holly offered quickly. "I have some wedding errands anyway." Derek noted the eagerness in his wife's voice. "What time is your art class tonight?" Holly's coffee cup rattled against her saucer. "Actually, they canceled this week. Too close to Memorial Day weekend." Another lie. Derek had called the community center yesterday evening. Their art classes ran year-round except for major holidays. Memorial Day was still 10 days away. "Dad," Emma said quietly, "can you help me pick a dress for the wedding? Mom said all mine are too fancy." Derek looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Holly's expression, irritation mixed with something darker. "Too fancy? For your brother's wedding? I just think she should remember this day is about Trevor," Holly said sharply. Some of her dresses are attention-seeking. Emma's face fell. Derek felt that cold sensation in his chest expand. Emma, we'll go shopping this afternoon. You should look beautiful at your brother's wedding. She doesn't need special treatment, Trevor said, finally looking up from his phone. It's not her day. Derek studied his son, the golden child he'd been so proud of, now looking at his sister with casual cruelty. Since when do we not want our family members to look their best at important events? Since some people think everything is about them, Trevor muttered, returning to his phone. The breakfast continued in tense silence. Derek excused himself to his office, closing the door and sitting among Emma's artwork that covered his walls. Her paintings showed a progression of themes over the years. Bright, happy scenes as a younger child, gradually giving way to more melancholic subjects. In her recent work, the human figures were often isolated, surrounded by beauty they couldn't quite reach. Derek had been so focused on external threats to his family that he'd missed the predators already inside his home. He spent Thursday morning conducting surveillance on his own life. Phone records showed Holly's calls to the community center had stopped 3 years ago, replaced by frequent calls to a number registered to Connor Blaze Studios. Credit card statements revealed charges at expensive restaurants on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, dates that coincided with Holly's supposed art classes. The amounts were always for 2 people. More disturbing were the charges Holly had hidden from him. Secret credit cards in her name only, funded by cash advances from their joint accounts. Expensive gifts, hotel rooms, even a weekend trip to Vermont Derek knew nothing about. Holly had been living a double life, financing it with his money while he worked 16-hour days to provide for what he thought was a loyal family. But the financial betrayal paled compared to what Derek discovered about Trevor. Bank records showed regular deposits from Holly into Trevor's account, amounts that corresponded with Derek's bonus payments for major cases. While Derek reinvested his success into Emma's college fund and the family's future, Holly had been siphoning money to Trevor as payment for his silence. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. Monica, the Henderson surveillance photos are ready. Want me to email them? Derek had forgotten about the Henderson case, a routine adultery investigation that now felt surreal given his own circumstances. Send them over. The photos showed Mrs. Henderson meeting her lover at a hotel, both of them laughing as they walked hand in hand toward the entrance. Derek had seen this scene hundreds of times through his telephoto lens, but now he wondered how often he'd been the unwitting subject of similar surveillance in his own life. At noon, Derek drove to Connor Blaze Studios. The converted warehouse sat in the arts district downtown, surrounded by galleries and coffee shops. Through his binoculars, Derek observed the building's layout, noting security cameras, exit points, and the loading dock that would provide discreet access. He'd been surveilling cheating spouses for 15 years, and now he was applying those skills to his own wife. Connor emerged at 12:30, tall and lean with the kind of effortless style that Derek's practical wardrobe couldn't match. He wore paint-stained jeans and a flannel shirt that somehow looked intentional rather than careless. Derek understood the appeal. Connor represented the artistic life Holly had abandoned, the passion she'd traded for security. Derek followed Connor to an upscale cafe where he met another woman, not Holly. This was unexpected. Derek photographed their interaction, noting the familiarity between them, the way Connor touched her hand across the table. Either Connor was cheating on Derek's wife, or Derek was witnessing something more complex than a simple affair. The woman was Ashley Crenshaw's older sister, Marlena. Derek recognized her from wedding planning events. She was 31, recently divorced, and according to background checks Derek now performed, involved in several failed business ventures. The conversation between Connor and Marlena appeared intense, with documents exchanged across the table. Derek's investigation instincts fired on all cylinders. This wasn't random. Trevor was marrying into the Crenshaw family. Holly was having an affair with Connor, and now Connor was meeting secretly with the bride's sister. The connections formed a web Derek needed to understand completely before taking action. He returned home to find Holly preparing for her fictional art class. She'd changed into a flowing skirt and bohemian blouse, clothes she never wore around Derek, who preferred professional attire for all occasions. "You look nice," Derek said, watching her reaction. "Just felt like wearing something different." Holly checked her reflection, adjusting her necklace, a piece Derek didn't recognize. "New jewelry? This old thing? I've had it forever." Another lie. Derek's trained, I had cataloged every piece of jewelry he'd given Holly over 20 years of marriage. This necklace was new, expensive, and not his style. "Pick up anything special for Emma while you were out with Trevor?" Holly's face tightened. "We didn't have time. Trevor's fitting took longer than expected." Derek nodded, filing away the information. "I'll take him shopping tomorrow after school. She needs something special for the wedding. Don't go overboard. She's 11, not the bride." The contempt in Holly's voice was barely concealed now. Derek wondered how long she'd felt this way about their daughter, how many moments of cruelty he'd missed while building his business empire. After Holly left for her rendezvous with Connor, Derek found Emma in the living room watching television alone. Trevor was upstairs on a conference call with his fiancée, planning last-minute wedding details with the casual entitlement of someone who'd never questioned his privileged position. "Emma, can you help me with something in the office?" Emma brightened, following Derek to his sanctuary filled with her artwork. He pulled out a new case file and legal pad, making a show of organizing papers. "I'm working on a case about a family," Derek said carefully. "Sometimes people closest to us aren't who we think they are. Have you ever felt like someone was being mean to you, but hiding it from other people?" Emma's face went pale. "What kind of mean?" "Maybe saying things that hurt your feelings, but only when certain people aren't around. Or making you feel bad about things you should feel good about." Emma bit her lip, looking at her paintings on Derek's walls. "Mom says I'm selfish for hanging my pictures everywhere. She says it makes Trevor feel bad because he's not artistic." "When does she say things like that?" "When you're working late. She says I take up too much of your attention, that I need to remember I'm not the only child." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sometimes Trevor agrees with her. He says I should be more grateful for everything you do for our family instead of always wanting praise for my pictures." Derek felt something fundamental shift inside him, a cold, calculating rage that had made him lethal in military intelligence and ruthless in business. His family wasn't just betraying him. They were emotionally abusing his daughter, systematically breaking down her confidence while he worked to provide for their comfort. "Emma, I want you to know that you're not selfish. Your art is beautiful, and you deserve praise for your talent. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But what if they're right? What if I am too much?" Derek knelt beside his daughter's chair, looking directly into eyes that mirrored his own. "Listen to me carefully. You're not too much. You are exactly enough. And anyone who tries to make you feel otherwise is wrong." That night, Derek sat in his office long after the house had gone quiet. Holly returned from her art class at 10:15 p.m., her hair slightly mussed and her lips swollen in a way Derek recognized from their early marriage. She went straight to the shower, washing away evidence of her betrayal while Derek planned their destruction. Derek Whitmore had exposed corruption, brought down criminal enterprises, and destroyed careers through careful investigation and strategic action. He'd never applied those skills against people he loved, but love had proven to be a luxury he could no longer afford. His family had declared war on him and Emma through their betrayal and cruelty. Now Derek would show them why he'd never lost a case, why his enemies feared him, and why mercy was a gift he reserved for those who deserved it. Tomorrow was Friday. The wedding was Saturday. Derek had 24 hours to uncover the full scope of their deceptions and put his plan into motion. He opened a new case file and wrote Whitmore Family on the tab. For the first time in his career, Derek was investigating people he'd once loved. It would be the most important case of his life, and the last one where he fought for justice instead of revenge. Chapter 3. The Point of No Return. Friday morning arrived gray and cold, matching Derek's mood as he prepared for what would become the most crucial day of his investigation. He'd spent Thursday night assembling evidence of Holly's affair and Trevor's complicity, but Derek sensed deeper layers of betrayal still hidden beneath the surface. His military training had taught him that successful operations required complete intelligence before striking, and Derek was nothing if not thorough. Emma came down for breakfast in a yellow sundress, her long auburn hair braided carefully, a style Derek recognized as her own work since Holly had stopped helping with such things months ago. She moved quietly, almost invisibly, as if trying not to take up space in her own home. "Morning, sweetheart," Derek said, pouring orange juice in her favorite glass, one painted with sunflowers that she'd made in art class 2 years ago. "Morning, Dad." Emma's smile was tentative, still uncertain after their conversation yesterday. "Are we still going dress shopping today?" "Absolutely. Right after school." Holly entered the kitchen wearing designer workout clothes. Another detail Derek noted since Holly rarely exercised. "I thought Emma already had plenty of dresses. She needs something special for Trevor's wedding," Derek said evenly. "It's an important family occasion. Some families know when to step back and let others shine," Trevor announced, walking into the kitchen wearing an expensive suit Derek didn't remember buying him. Derek studied his son, really looked at him for perhaps the first time in years. Trevor had grown into a handsome young man with Derek's height and Holly's refined features. But there was something cold in his expression when he looked at Emma. It was subtle, a tightening around his eyes, a slight curl to his lip, but Derek's trained observation skills caught every micro-expression. "Emma should always shine," Derek said quietly. "She's family." "She's 11, Trevor replied. "The wedding isn't about her." "Family events are about all of us," Derek countered, watching Trevor's face redden slightly. "Emma has every right to look beautiful at her brother's wedding." "Whatever," Trevor muttered, grabbing a protein bar and heading toward the door. "Ashley wants to rehearse dinner seating tonight. We'll be late." Holly kissed Trevor's cheek. "Have a wonderful day, honey. Tomorrow will be perfect." The warmth in Holly's voice when speaking to Trevor contrasted sharply with her indifference toward Emma. Derek logged this observation along with dozens of others, building a comprehensive picture of his family's dynamics. After Trevor and Holly left, Derek drove Emma to school, using the time to probe gently for more information. "Emma, you mentioned Mom thinks your dresses are too fancy. When did she say that?" "A few weeks ago. She was going through my closet and said I had too many pretty things, that it wasn't fair to other children." Emma stared out the window. "She gave away 3 of my favorite dresses to charity without asking." Derek's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Those dresses had been gifts from him, chosen specifically because Emma had admired them in store windows. Holly had no right to dispose of them without consultation. Did she explain why she thought it wasn't fair? "She said some children don't have nice things, so I shouldn't have so many. But then she bought Trevor a new suit that cost more than all my dresses combined." Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, as if she'd already accepted this unfairness as normal. Derek pulled into the school drop-off lane, turning to face his daughter. "Emma, I want you to understand something. There's nothing wrong with having nice things when we can afford them. There's nothing wrong with looking beautiful. And there's definitely nothing wrong with being proud of your talents." Emma nodded, but Derek could see she didn't entirely believe him. Years of subtle messaging from Holly and Trevor had done their damage, creating doubt where confidence should flourish. "After school, we're getting you the most beautiful dress in the store," Derek promised. "You're going to look like a princess tomorrow." For the first time in days, Emma's smile reached her eyes. "Really? Really?" "And Emma, from now on, before anyone gives away your things or tells you to change who you are, they come through me first." "Understood." Emma nodded enthusiastically, grabbing her backpack and heading towards school with lighter steps than Derek had seen in months. Derek spent Friday morning conducting deeper surveillance on Connor Blaze. The sculptor studio was busier than expected, with several visitors throughout the morning. Derek photographed each arrival and departure, running license plates through his professional databases. The visitors included Marlena Crenshaw, a lawyer Derek didn't recognize, and surprisingly, a man Derek knew from his own professional circles. Vincent Torino, a private investigator who specialized in inheritance disputes and family law cases. This connection troubled Derek deeply. Vincent was expensive, discreet, and typically hired for high-stakes family conflicts involving substantial money. His presence at Connor's studio suggested the affair was more than romantic. It was strategic. Derek positioned himself across from Connor's building and called Vincent directly. Derek Whitmore. Vincent answered, recognizing the caller ID. Haven't heard from you in months. How's business? Busy as always. I saw your car downtown today. Working anything interesting? Vincent chuckled. You know I can't discuss active cases. Client confidentiality and all that. Of course. Just making conversation. Derek paused. Though I have to ask, any chance you're working a case that might conflict with mine? I'd hate for us to step on each other's toes. What are you working? Adultery case. Routine stuff, but the client is nervous about privacy. Shouldn't be a problem. My current case is more inheritance-focused. Old money, family disputes, the usual wealthy people drama. Derek's blood chilled. Inheritance disputes. Old money. The Whitmore family was neither old money nor involved in inheritance conflicts, but Derek's business success had created substantial assets. If Holly was planning divorce, she'd need documentation to claim her share, and if she was planning something more elaborate, she'd need professional help. Well, thanks for the heads up. Let me know if you want to grab drinks next week. Will do. Give my regards to Holly and the kids. Derek ended the call with his suspicions confirmed. Vincent knew Holly's name without prompting, suggesting he'd already been briefed on Derek's family situation. The web of betrayal was more complex than simple adultery. It appeared to be an elaborate scheme involving financial planning and legal strategy. Derek drove to the courthouse and paid for public record searches on recent legal filings involving his family name. What he discovered made his hands shake with rage. Holly had filed preliminary divorce papers 3 weeks ago through a discreet family law firm specializing in high-asset divorces. The papers hadn't been served yet, but they existed, outlining Holly's claims to 50% of Derek's business assets, the family home, and primary custody of Emma. The filings cited irreconcilable differences and claimed Derek's work schedule constituted emotional abandonment of his family. More damaging were the supporting documents Holly's lawyer had prepared. Statements from Trevor claiming Derek showed favoritism toward Emma and neglected his son's emotional needs. Testimony from Holly alleging Derek's work with dangerous criminals made him an unfit father. Even a psychological evaluation request suggesting Derek's military background indicated potential violent tendencies. They were painting Derek as an absent, potentially dangerous father while positioning Holly as the protective mother and Trevor as the neglected victim. Emma was being used as a pawn. If Holly gained primary custody, she could move Emma away from Derek's influence while continuing to receive substantial child support payments. Derek sat in his car outside the courthouse, processing the full scope of their betrayal. Holly wasn't just cheating. She was systematically destroying his relationship with his children while positioning herself for financial gain. Trevor wasn't just complicit. He was actively participating in character assassination against his own father. They had weaponized Emma's affection for Derek, planning to use custody arrangements to control his access to the daughter who meant everything to him. They were prepared to traumatize an 11-year-old girl to secure financial advantage in divorce proceedings. Derek called his own lawyer, Patricia Vance, who'd handled his business legal needs for 10 years. Patricia, I need immediate consultation on a family matter. Can you see me today? Of course, Derek. Is everything all right? No, everything is decidedly not all right. At 2 p.m., Derek sat in Patricia's office reviewing Holly's divorce filing. Patricia was a sharp woman in her 50s who'd built her reputation handling complex corporate disputes, but she understood family law implications. Derek, I have to ask, are any of these allegations true? The emotional abandonment, the dangerous work environment, the favoritism toward Emma. I work long hours to provide for my family. My business involves investigating criminals, not socializing with them. And yes, I have a close relationship with Emma, but I've never neglected Trevor. Derek paused, though I'm starting to understand why Trevor might feel neglected. Holly has been buying his loyalty while I've been working to secure our future. Patricia reviewed the financial disclosures. They're claiming your business is worth twice what you've estimated. They've hired forensic accountants to find hidden assets. There are no hidden assets. Every penny I've earned has gone into our family's welfare or business growth. They're also requesting supervised visitation with Emma pending psychological evaluation. Derek, they're trying to paint you as potentially violent. Derek felt the cold rage crystallize into something harder, more focused. Patricia, I need you to prepare immediate legal responses to every claim. I also need asset protection advice. If Holly wants a war, she'll discover I'm better at warfare than she anticipated. Derek, as your attorney, I have to advise caution. Family court judges don't like aggressive tactics. Holly has been planning this for months, while I've been working to support her deception. She's psychologically abusing our daughter while positioning herself as the victim. Caution is what got me into this situation. Patricia studied Derek's face. What are you planning? I'm planning to protect my daughter and myself from people who've declared war on our family. Everything beyond that depends on how far they're willing to push. Derek left Patricia's office with a clear understanding of his legal position and a burning need to understand the complete scope of the conspiracy against him. He picked Emma up from school and took her to the most exclusive children's boutique in Millbrook Heights. Pick any dress you want, Derek told Emma as they entered the store. Money is no object. Emma chose a navy blue dress with delicate silver embroidery, sophisticated but age-appropriate, beautiful without being ostentatious. She looked radiant in the dressing room mirror, her confidence returning as she saw herself transformed. I love it, Dad. Thank you. Derek bought the dress along with matching shoes, a delicate silver necklace, and a hair clip that would complement Emma's auburn waves. If this was going to be one of their last normal moments together before the battle began, Derek wanted Emma to feel cherished and beautiful. They arrived home at 6 p.m. to find Holly and Trevor preparing for the rehearsal dinner. Holly took one look at Emma's shopping bags, and her face darkened. What's all this? Emma's wedding outfit, Derek said calmly. She looks beautiful. I told you not to go overboard. And I told you she deserves to look special for her brother's wedding. Derek's voice carried an edge that made Holly step back. Unless you have some reason why Emma shouldn't look beautiful tomorrow. Holly's mouth opened and closed without sound. Trevor appeared in the hallway, also carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. What did Emma need that cost so much? Trevor demanded. Some of us have actual wedding expenses. Derek looked at his son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing his family's name. Some of us earn the money that pays for those wedding expenses. Dad, Trevor began. No. Derek's voice cut through the hallway like a blade. You're an adult now, Trevor. Act like one. Your sister deserves to look beautiful at your wedding, and anyone who suggests otherwise can explain their reasoning to me directly. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Ashley Crenshaw arrived to collect Trevor for the rehearsal dinner. Derek used the distraction to take Emma upstairs and help her hang the new dress in her closet. Dad, Emma said quietly as Derek adjusted the dress on its hanger. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Derek's hands stilled. Why would you ask that? I heard her on the phone yesterday. She was talking about custody and money and how you work too much. Emma's eyes filled with tears. If you get divorced, will I have to choose who to live with? Derek knelt beside his daughter, taking her hands in his. Emma, I want you to listen very carefully. No matter what happens between any of the adults in this family, you are my priority. You will always be safe, always be loved, and always be protected. Do you understand? Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. I don't want things to change. Some changes might be necessary, sweetheart, but my love for you will never change. That evening, Derek sat alone in his office while Holly attended the rehearsal dinner she'd insisted he skip due to work obligations. Emma was asleep upstairs, her new dress hanging in preparation for tomorrow's wedding. Derek stared at the evidence spread across his desk. Photographs, financial records, legal documents, proof of the most comprehensive betrayal he'd ever encountered. His phone buzzed with a text from Holly. Rehearsal dinner running late. Don't wait up. Derek knew she wouldn't be coming home tonight. Holly would spend the evening with Connor, celebrating the success of their plan while Derek's marriage died in silence. But Derek Whitmore hadn't survived military intelligence, built a successful investigation firm, and destroyed numerous enemies by accepting defeat. Holly, Trevor, and their accomplices had made a fatal error. They'd underestimated the man they were betraying. Tomorrow is Saturday. Trevor's wedding would proceed as planned, with all the major players assembled in one location. It would be the perfect opportunity for Derek to reveal the truth about his family and execute the justice they'd earned through their cruelty. Derek opened his laptop and began typing a detailed plan. By Sunday morning, everyone involved in this betrayal would understand why Derek Whitmore had never lost a case. The game was about to begin, and Derek intended to win. Chapter 4. The Calm Before the Storm. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, perfect weather for what Derek knew would be the last normal day his family would ever have. He woke at 5 a.m., finding Holly's side of the bed empty. She'd never come home from her supposed rehearsal dinner activities. Derek felt nothing but cold satisfaction at this final confirmation of her betrayal. Emma was already awake when Derek checked her room, sitting by the window in her pajamas, staring at her wedding dress hanging in the closet. "Big day," Derek said, sitting on her bed. "I'm nervous," Emma admitted. "What if my dress is too pretty? What if people think I'm trying to take attention from Ashley?" Derek's heart broke at his daughter's words. Holly and Trevor had so thoroughly undermined Emma's confidence that she was afraid of looking beautiful at her own brother's wedding. "Emma, look at me." Derek waited until she met his eyes. "Today you're going to look absolutely perfect. Anyone who has a problem with that is revealing something ugly about themselves, not about you." Emma nodded, though doubt still clouded her expression. Years of psychological conditioning wouldn't disappear overnight, but Derek was determined to begin repairing the damage his wife and son had inflicted. At 8 a.m., Derek's phone rang. The caller ID showed Vincent Torino's number. "Vincent," Derek answered, curious about the timing. "Derek, I need to speak with you about a potential conflict of interest. Can we meet this morning? I'm preparing for my son's wedding today. Can this wait until Monday?" "Actually, that's what I need to discuss. My current case involves your family." Derek felt his pulse quicken. "How so?" "I'd rather discuss this in person. Can you meet me at Brennan's Cafe in 30 minutes? It's important." Derek agreed, telling Emma he had a quick errand before the wedding preparations began. He found Vincent waiting in a corner booth, looking uncomfortable. "Derek, I owe you the courtesy of full disclosure," Vincent began without preamble. 3 weeks ago, Holly hired me to conduct surveillance on you." Derek kept his expression neutral despite the fury building inside him. "Surveillance for what purpose?" "She claimed you were having an affair. Said she needed documentation for divorce proceedings." Vincent shifted uncomfortably. "The thing is, Derek, after 3 weeks of following you, I have absolutely no evidence of any affair. Your behavior has been completely consistent with a devoted father and hard-working businessman. Then why are you telling me this now?" "Because yesterday, Holly asked me to fabricate evidence. She wants me to create photographs showing you with another woman, manufacture a paper trail of supposed secret meetings." Vincent leaned forward. "Derek, I've known you for 15 years. You've referred clients to me, helped me build my business. I can't participate in framing you." Derek felt a piece of the puzzle click into place. "She's planning to present fabricated evidence in divorce court. That's my assessment. She's also been working with Connor Blaze to establish timeline alibis for herself while I was supposed to be documenting your fictional affair." Vincent paused. "Derek, there's more. Marlena Crenshaw hired me 2 months ago to investigate your business finances. She's looking for ways to access your assets through Trevor's marriage to Ashley." The scope of the conspiracy was breathtaking. Holly wasn't just planning a divorce. She was orchestrating a complete financial destruction involving the Crenshaw family, Connor Blaze, and professional investigators. "What did you tell Marlena about my finances?" "Nothing. I don't investigate friends, and I don't fabricate evidence for anyone." Vincent slid a folder across the table. "This is everything Holly asked me to create, along with documentation of her requests. Consider it my resignation from her employment." Derek opened the folder to find sophisticated forgeries, photographs showing him with various women in compromising situations, credit card statements for hotel rooms he'd never rented, even fake text message conversations. The level of detail was professional, designed to be credible in court proceedings. Vincent, I appreciate your honesty. Who else knows about this? Just Holly and Connor as far as I know. Though Marlena Crenshaw has been asking pointed questions about when the fabricated evidence would be available. Derek closed the folder, his mind racing through implications. One more question. Do you know anything about plans for today's wedding specifically? Vincent hesitated. Holly mentioned wanting to create a public scene that would support her claims about your temper. Something about provoking you in front of witnesses. Derek felt the last piece of the puzzle fall into place. Today's wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a carefully orchestrated trap designed to destroy his reputation and provide evidence for Holly's divorce proceedings. Vincent, I need a favor. Can you document today's events from a neutral perspective? I have a feeling there's going to be significant drama, and I'll need independent witnesses to what actually happens. Of course. Derek, I'm sorry about all this. Your family, they're not who I thought they were. Derek returned home to find Holly in the master bathroom, applying makeup with unusual care. She wore a stunning burgundy dress that Derek didn't recognize. Another gift from Connor, he assumed. You look beautiful, Derek said, meaning it. Holly was still an attractive woman, which made her betrayal even more incomprehensible. Thank you. Holly avoided his eyes. Trevor called. He wants family pictures before the ceremony. We should leave early to get good lighting. Derek nodded, filing away this information. Family pictures would provide the perfect opportunity for Holly to create her public scene in front of wedding photographers and guests. Derek helped Emma get ready, carefully styling her hair and ensuring every detail of her outfit was perfect. When Emma emerged from her room in the navy dress with silver embroidery, she looked like a young princess, sophisticated, beautiful, and radiant with confidence. Oh my God, Trevor said when he saw Emma coming down the stairs. That dress cost more than my groomsmen's entire outfits. Emma looks beautiful, Derek said firmly. Exactly as she should for her brother's wedding. Holly appeared beside Trevor, her face darkening when she saw Emma's transformation. It's very mature for an 11-year-old. It's perfect, Derek countered. Emma, you look absolutely stunning. Emma beamed under her father's praise, but Derek noticed her uncertainty return under Holly and Trevor's disapproving stares. This dynamic had been playing out for years, Derek building Emma's confidence while Holly and Trevor systematically undermined it. The drive to Millbrook Country Club passed in tense silence. Derek used the time to observe his family's dynamics with fresh eyes, cataloging every microaggression and subtle cruelty he'd previously missed. Holly and Trevor communicated through glances and gestures, clearly planning something Derek wasn't privy to. At the country club, Derek immediately noticed the staging of events. Holly guided the family toward the outdoor terrace where photographers were waiting, positioning everyone for what appeared to be casual pre-ceremony pictures. But Derek spotted Vincent Torino among the early arriving guests, discreetly documenting the scene as promised. Derek, Holly called sweetly, come stand with your family. We want some nice pictures before the chaos begins. Derek joined the group, noting how Holly positioned herself and Trevor on one side with Emma and Derek on the other. Visual separation that would read clearly in photographs. The photographer, clearly briefed by Holly, focused on shots that emphasized the family division. Emma, sweetheart, the photographer said, maybe step back a little. You're blocking some of the beautiful background. Derek stepped forward. Actually, Emma should be front and center. She looks beautiful today. Holly's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Derek, we're trying to get professional photos. Maybe let the photographer direct. The photographer works for our family, Derek replied calmly. Emma is part of this family. She belongs in every shot. Trevor moved closer to Holly, creating a more obvious visual separation. Dad, you're being difficult. Just let them take the pictures. Derek felt the trap beginning to close around him. Holly was creating a scene designed to make him appear controlling and unreasonable in front of witnesses and cameras. Every response Derek made would be twisted to support her narrative about his problematic behavior. Emma, Derek said quietly, go stand wherever you feel comfortable. This is your family too. Emma moved closer to Derek, instinctively seeking protection from the tension she could feel but couldn't understand. The photographers captured everything. Derek and Emma standing together while Holly and Trevor maintained distance. Derek's protective stance, the visible family division. Ashley Crenshaw appeared with her parents, Judge Robert Crenshaw and his wife Eleanor. Derek had met them several times during wedding planning, finding them pleasant if somewhat pretentious. What Derek hadn't known was their connection to Holly's conspiracy through Marlena. "What a beautiful family," Eleanor Crenshaw gushed, though Derek caught her assessing, gaze lingering on Emma's dress with obvious calculation. "Emma, you look so grown up. That dress is quite sophisticated." "Thank you," Emma said politely, though Derek noticed her confidence wavering under the scrutiny. "Perhaps a bit too sophisticated for a child's wedding attire," Judge Crenshaw added with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "But I'm sure her father chose it with the best intentions." Derek recognized the subtle attack, suggesting he was inappropriate in his clothing choices for Emma, planting seeds of doubt about his judgment as a father. These people had clearly been briefed on Holly's strategy. "Emma chose the dress herself," Derek said calmly. "She has excellent taste." "Of course she does," Marlena Crenshaw said, joining the group. "Children often have such interesting perspectives on appropriate attire." The word appropriate hung in the air like an accusation. Derek was beginning to understand the full scope of what Holly had planned. A coordinated attack on his character by multiple witnesses, all designed to support her claims about his poor judgment and difficult personality. Derek's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number behind the rose garden. "Come alone. Important information about today." Derek excused himself from the photo session, walking toward the back of the country club grounds where an elaborate rose garden provided privacy from the main event areas. He found a young woman waiting nervously by the fountain, someone Derek didn't recognize, but who clearly knew him. "Mr. Whitmore? I'm Jessica Chong, Connor Blaze's studio assistant." She looked around nervously. "I needed to warn you about something." Derek felt his pulse quicken. "What kind of warning?" "Connor has been planning something for today. He's going to be here at the wedding, even though he wasn't invited." Mrs. Whitmore arranged for him to attend as Marlena Crenshaw's guest. Jessica's words tumbled out quickly. "They're planning to create some kind of scene during the reception. Something about making you lose your temper in public." Derek studied Jessica's face, reading genuine concern. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been watching what they're doing to your daughter. Connor showed me pictures of Emma, talked about how she was competition for Mrs. Whitmore's attention. He's been encouraging your wife to diminish Emma's confidence." Jessica's voice broke slightly. "Mr. Whitmore, they've been planning to destroy your relationship with your daughter as part of their strategy." "It's sick." Derek felt the cold rage crystallize into something harder and more focused. "Jessica, where exactly is Connor planning to make his appearance?" "During the father-daughter dance. Mrs. Whitmore told him you always dance with Emma at family events. That would be the perfect moment to interrupt and claim she's neglecting her marriage for her children." Derek processed this information, understanding Holly's strategy completely now. She would use Derek's love for Emma against him, turning a tender father-daughter moment into evidence of his inappropriate priorities and poor judgment. "Jessica, I need you to do something for me. Can you document Connor's presence here today? Photographs, video if possible." "Already planning on it." "This whole thing is wrong, Mr. Whitmore. Your daughter doesn't deserve any of this." Derek returned to the wedding preparations with complete clarity about what he was facing. Holly, Trevor, Connor, and the Crenshaw family had coordinated an elaborate trap designed to destroy his reputation and justify taking Emma away from him. They'd weaponized a family celebration, turning his son's wedding into a battlefield where Derek's love for his daughter would be used as evidence against him. But Derek Whitmore had spent his career anticipating and countering elaborate deceptions. Holly and her accomplices had made a critical error. They'd underestimated the man they were betraying and overestimated their own cleverness. As guests began arriving for the ceremony, Derek spotted Connor among them, dressed in an expensive suit and staying close to Marlena Crenshaw. Vincent Torino was positioned strategically to document events from multiple angles. Holly was radiant and charming, playing the role of devoted mother and wife while positioning herself for the performance of her life. Derek found Emma sitting alone on a bench, watching other wedding guests with the careful observation of a child who'd learned to read adult moods for her own protection. "How are you doing, sweetheart?" "Everyone keeps staring at my dress," Emma said quietly. "Maybe it really is too fancy." Derek sat beside his daughter, taking her small hand in his. "Emma, I'm going to tell you something important. Some people in our family haven't been treating you the way they should. They've been saying things to make you doubt yourself because they're jealous of how special you are." Emma looked up at Derek with wide eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you deserve to feel beautiful and confident and loved. Anyone who tries to make you feel otherwise is wrong, even if they're family." Derek paused, choosing his words carefully. "Today might be difficult. People might say or do things that don't make sense. But I need you to remember that you belong here, you deserve to be here, and you have every right to look as beautiful as you do." Emma nodded solemnly. "Are you and Mom really getting divorced?" "I think that's very likely, sweetheart. But that doesn't change how much I love you or how important you are to me." "Well, I have to choose." Derek looked into his daughter's eyes. His own eyes reflected back at him, and made a promise he intended to keep regardless of the cost. "Emma, you will never have to choose between people who love you. I will make sure of that." The wedding ceremony was about to begin, and Derek knew the real performance was yet to come. Holly's trap was elaborate and carefully planned, but Derek had been fighting wars since before she'd learned to lie convincingly. Tonight, everyone involved in this betrayal would discover why Derek Whitmore had never lost a battle that mattered to him. Chapter 5. The Wedding Day Revelation. The wedding ceremony proceeded like a beautiful lie wrapped in expensive flowers and false smiles. Derek sat in the front row watching Trevor exchange vows with Ashley, but his attention remained fixed on the audience's positioning. Connor Blaze sat 3 rows back with Marlena Crenshaw, occasionally catching Holly's eye and nodding subtly. Vincent Torino had positioned himself with perfect sight lines to document whatever scene Holly planned to create. Emma sat beside Derek in her navy dress, unconsciously leaning against his arm for comfort as she watched her brother's wedding. To any observer, they looked like a devoted father and daughter sharing a family milestone. Derek knew Holly intended to weaponize this very image against him later. Judge Crenshaw performed the ceremony with theatrical gravitas, occasionally glancing toward Derek with assessing eyes. The entire Crenshaw family was clearly invested in today's outcome beyond their daughter's happiness. They were witnessing the setup for a financial opportunity that would benefit them through Trevor's marriage and Holly's divorce proceedings. "You may kiss the bride," Judge Crenshaw announced, and Trevor and Ashley sealed their union with a kiss that drew enthusiastic applause from the assembled guests. During the receiving line, Derek observed Holly's performance masterfully. She hugged Trevor with maternal pride, welcomed Ashley warmly into the family, and played the role of devoted wife when photographers captured moments with Derek. But when the cameras weren't focused on them, Holly's demeanor shifted to cold distance. "Beautiful ceremony," Connor Blaze said when he reached Derek in the receiving line. "I'm Marlena's guest, Connor Blaze, sculptor." Derek shook Connor's hand, noting the man's firm grip and calculating eyes. "Derek Whitmore, thank you for celebrating with us." "Your daughter looks lovely," Connor added, his gaze moving to Emma with an expression Derek couldn't quite read. "Very mature for her age." The comment felt loaded with meaning Derek didn't yet understand, but he filed it away with growing unease. "Emma is special." "Children often are," Connor replied cryptically before moving on. The cocktail hour provided Derek with opportunities to observe the conspiracy's players in action. Holly circulated among guests with unusual animation, accepting compliments on the wedding while subtly steering conversations toward Derek's work schedule and dedication to the family. She was laying groundwork for the scene to come. "Derek works so hard for us," Derek heard Holly tell a group of neighbors. "Sometimes I worry he gets too focused on work and misses what's happening right in front of him." Trevor moved among his college friends and Ashley's family, playing the role of devoted son while making subtle comments about family dynamics that wouldn't become significant until later. "Dad's always been," intense about certain things, Trevor told Ashley's brother. Mom's the one who really holds our family together. Derek spotted Jessica Chong near the edge of the reception area, discreetly photographing Connor's interactions with Holly and the Crenshaw family. True to her word, she was documenting evidence of the conspiracy Derek would need later. Emma stayed close to Derek throughout the cocktail hour, her earlier confidence fading as she absorbed the subtle disapproval radiating from various family members. Derek noticed Judge Crenshaw's wife making pointed comments about age-appropriate attire for children, while Marlena Crenshaw asked Emma probing questions about her relationship with her father. "Do you and your daddy spend a lot of time together?" Marlena asked with false sweetness. "We work on art projects in his office," Emma replied honestly. "He hangs my paintings on his walls." "How special. Does your mommy join these art sessions?" Emma's face clouded. "Mom says art is a waste of time. She doesn't like my pictures." Derek intervened before Marlena could probe further, but he'd seen enough. They were building a case that Derek's relationship with Emma was inappropriately exclusive, that he was alienating her from Holly while encouraging activities Holly disapproved of. Dinner proceeded with Derek and Emma seated at the family table beside Holly and Trevor. The seating arrangement had been carefully planned, Derek and Emma on one side, Holly and Trevor on the other, with the visual separation clear to anyone photographing the reception. During dinner, Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Connor just received a signal from Mrs. W. Whatever they're planning starts soon." Derek excused himself for the restroom, using the opportunity to position himself where he could observe the room's dynamics. He spotted Connor moving toward the band setup, speaking quietly with the DJ. Holly was checking her watch repeatedly, her nervous energy building towards something significant. When Derek returned to the table, he found Emma looking distressed. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Mom was telling Grandma Crenshaw about my art," Emma whispered. "She said you spoil me too much and that I need to learn disappointment." Derek felt his carefully controlled temper flare, but he maintained his calm exterior. "What did Grandma Crenshaw say?" She agreed. She said fathers sometimes don't understand appropriate boundaries with daughters. Emma's voice was barely audible. "Dad, what's a boundary?" Derek looked across the table at Holly, who was watching their conversation with barely concealed satisfaction. She was systematically poisoning Emma's relationships while positioning herself as the reasonable parent concerned about Derek's judgment. "Emma," Derek said carefully, "boundaries are important between adults and children. But love, support, and encouragement are never inappropriate between fathers and daughters." The DJ's voice interrupted Derek's explanation. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to slow things down now for a very special dance. Would all married couples please join the bride and groom on the dance floor?" Derek stood to escort Holly to the dance floor, but she waved him off. "I need to touch up my makeup. Go ahead and dance with Emma. You two seem to enjoy each other's company more than I enjoy yours anyway." The comment was delivered with a smile for surrounding guests, but the poison was unmistakable. Derek felt the trap closing around him as other couples moved onto the dance floor. If he danced with Emma now, it would support Holly's narrative about inappropriate priorities. If he refused, he'd disappoint his daughter in front of the entire wedding reception. Derek made his choice, extending his hand to Emma. "Would you like to dance, sweetheart?" Emma's face lit up with genuine joy as they moved onto the dance floor. Other couples swayed to romantic music, while Derek carefully maintained appropriate distance with his 11-year-old daughter, simply sharing a sweet family moment that should have been completely innocent. That's when Connor Blaze made his move. "Excuse me," Connor said, approaching Derek and Emma on the dance floor. "I think I need to cut in." Derek stopped dancing, keeping Emma protectively beside him. "I'm sorry. Holly and I need to have a conversation about her priorities," Connor announced loudly enough for nearby couples to hear. "She's been neglecting her marriage to focus on other relationships." The implication hit Derek like a physical blow. Connor was suggesting that Derek's relationship with Emma was somehow inappropriate, that Holly was justified in seeking attention elsewhere because her husband was overly focused on their daughter. "I think you're confused," Derek said evenly, though rage was building behind his calm exterior. "Am I?" Holly tells me you spend every evening in your office with Emma, that you buy her expensive gifts while ignoring your wife's needs. Connor's voice carried across the dance floor, drawing attention from other couples and guests at nearby tables. Derek felt Emma's hand tighten in his as she sensed the danger in Connor's words. Around them, other couples had stopped dancing to watch the confrontation unfold. "I think you should leave," Derek said quietly. "Actually, I think Holly should leave with me. She deserves a man who appreciates her instead of obsessing over his daughter like some kind of." Derek's military training kicked in before Connor could finish the sentence. In one fluid motion, Derek released Emma's hand, stepped forward, and delivered a precise strike to Connor's throat that dropped him to his knees without making a sound. The dance floor erupted in chaos as guests screamed and scattered. Connor clutched his throat, gasping for air but unable to speak. Derek stood over him with the calm of a man who'd neutralized threats more dangerous than a sculptor with delusions of courage. "Derek!" Holly screamed, running onto the dance floor. "What have you done?" Judge Crenshaw appeared beside Holly, his face grave with judicial authority. "Mr. Whitmore, I witnessed you assault this man without provocation." Derek looked around the dance floor, seeing exactly what Holly had orchestrated. Dozens of witnesses, multiple photographers, and a federal judge had all witnessed Derek apparently losing his temper and attacking an innocent wedding guest. It was perfect evidence for Holly's divorce proceedings, proof that Derek was violent, unstable, and potentially dangerous to his family. Emma stood frozen in the center of the chaos, tears streaming down her face as she watched her father become the villain in a story she didn't understand. "Dad," Emma whispered, reaching toward Derek. "Stay away from him, Emma," Holly commanded, positioning herself between Derek and their daughter. "He's dangerous." Trevor appeared beside Holly, his face a mask of righteous anger. "Dad, you need to leave. Now, before someone calls the police." Derek looked at his son, the golden child he'd supported through Harvard Law School, whose wedding he'd financed without question, and saw nothing but cold calculation. Trevor wasn't shocked by Derek's violence. He was satisfied by it. Vincent Torino pushed through the crowd, helping Connor to his feet. "I think we should call the authorities," Vincent announced. "This man just committed assault in front of 50 witnesses." Derek realized Vincent had been part of the setup all along. His morning confession had been theater designed to make Derek trust him while positioning Vincent to document the planned confrontation. "I'm calling 911, Judge Crenshaw declared, producing his phone with theatrical authority. Derek looked around the circle of faces. Holly's triumphant satisfaction, Trevor's cold approval, Connor's gasping recovery, the Crenshaw family's coordinated outrage, Vincent's false concern. They had orchestrated this moment perfectly, turning Derek's love for Emma into evidence of his dangerous instability. But as Derek stood in the center of their trap, watching Emma cry in confusion and fear, he felt something unexpected: relief. For the first time in months, Derek saw his enemies clearly. No more wondering about Holly's loyalty. No more hoping Trevor would remember his father's love. No more questioning his own perceptions. Holly, Trevor, Connor, and their accomplices had declared war on Derek and Emma. Now Derek could stop pretending they were family and start treating them as what they truly were: enemies who had earned his complete and ruthless attention. "You're right," Derek said calmly, addressing the assembled crowd. "I should leave." Derek walked past Connor, who was still clutching his throat and glaring with hatred. He paused beside Holly, speaking quietly enough that only she could hear. "Congratulations on your performance. I hope you enjoyed it, because it's the last time you'll ever surprise me." Derek knelt beside Emma, who was trembling in her beautiful navy dress. "Emma, I need you to listen carefully. None of this is your fault, and none of this changes how much I love you." "Derek, get away from her," Holly snapped. "You're scaring her." Derek stood slowly, his eyes moving from Holly to Trevor to Connor, and finally to Judge Crenshaw. "I'll be in touch about custody arrangements. Holly, I think you'll find that proving I'm an unfit father is more difficult than you've assumed." Derek walked out of the Millbrook Country Club with the dignity of a man who'd finally seen his enemies clearly. Behind him, Holly was already spinning the story for gathered guests, painting herself as the long-suffering wife finally free from her dangerous husband's control. But Derek was no longer the confused, betrayed husband Holly thought she destroyed. He was a military intelligence operative and professional investigator who'd been handed the perfect motivation for the kind of warfare that had made him legendary in his profession. Holly wanted a divorce? She'd get one, on Derek's terms. Trevor wanted to side with his mother? He'd learn what choosing sides against Derek Whitmore actually cost. Connor wanted Holly? He'd discover that Derek's patience had limits, and those limits had been permanently exceeded. The wedding was over, but the war was just beginning. Chapter 6. The Night She Lost Everything. Derek drove home in the silence of his sedan, his hands steady on the wheel despite the adrenaline still coursing through his system. The country club receded in his rearview mirror along with 20 years of illusions about his family. For the first time since discovering Holly's affair, Derek felt completely clear about his path forward. He had perhaps 6 hours before Holly returned home with Emma, probably accompanied by Trevor and possibly some of the Crenshaw family for moral support. 6 hours to transform his house from a family home into a fortress. 6 hours to implement the first phase of a war plan that would systematically destroy everyone who had betrayed him. Derek's first stop was his home office, where Emma's paintings covered the walls like accusations of innocence in a world that had shown none. He removed every piece of Emma's artwork, carefully packing them in protective sleeves. If Holly gained temporary custody through her manufactured evidence, Derek wouldn't leave his daughter's creations vulnerable to Holly's resentment. Next, Derek accessed his professional surveillance equipment, cameras, recording devices, tracking technology that his investigation firm used for corporate espionage cases. If Holly wanted to play games with evidence, Derek would ensure every conversation in his house was documented from this point forward. While installing hidden cameras throughout the main floor, Derek's phone rang. The caller ID showed Patricia Vance, his attorney. "Derek, I just received an emergency call from Judge Crenshaw. He's filing a restraining order against you, claiming you assaulted a wedding guest and pose a danger to your family." Derek continued adjusting a micro camera while speaking. "Patricia, I want you to request all video footage from tonight's wedding. The country club has security cameras, and I guarantee multiple guests recorded the incident. I also want background checks on Connor Blaze, Vincent Torino, and all members of the Crenshaw family. Derek, you need to take this seriously. Judge Crenshaw has significant influence in family court. If he's willing to testify against you. Patricia, Judge Crenshaw's daughter, will marry my son tonight. His financial interests are aligned with Holly's divorce settlement, not with justice." Derek paused his work, focusing completely on the phone call. "How quickly can you get me emergency custody of Emma?" "Custody? Derek, you just assaulted someone at a wedding. No judge is going to award you custody right now. I defended myself against a coordinated attack designed to frame me as an unstable father. There's a difference." Derek resumed, installing equipment. "Patricia, I'm going to send you evidence over the next few days that will change your perspective on this situation. Holly isn't the victim here. Emma is." Derek ended the call and continued his preparations. By midnight, his house was equipped with comprehensive surveillance that would capture every conversation, every movement, every moment of Holly's performance when she returned. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica Chong. "Mrs. W stayed at the club with Connor. They're planning something for tomorrow morning. Thought you should know." Derek typed back, "Document everything. I'll make it worth your while." At 1 a.m., Derek sat in his office reviewing the evidence he'd accumulated over the past week. Financial records showing Holly's secret spending, Vincent Torino's confession about fabricating surveillance evidence, legal documents proving Holly's planned divorce strategy. But Derek needed more than evidence. He needed leverage that would force his enemies into positions where their own actions would destroy them. Derek opened his laptop and began typing emails to contacts throughout his professional network. Military intelligence had taught Derek that successful warfare required intelligence, strategy, and overwhelming force applied at precisely the right moment. Holly and her accomplices had given Derek the intelligence he needed through their own arrogance. Now he needed to gather the resources for total victory. The first email went to Marcus Chun, a forensic accountant who specialized in hidden assets and financial fraud. Marcus, I need complete financial analysis of Connor Blaze Studios and Crenshaw Family Investments. Rush job. Payment double your usual rate. The second email went to Rachel Torres, a private investigator who handled cases too sensitive for Derek's own firm. Rachel, I need deep background on Vincent Torino, finances, clients, potential compromising situations. Also need surveillance on Holly Whitmore and Connor Blaze starting immediately. The third email was the most important, sent to Colonel James Mitchell, Derek's former commanding officer, who now worked in military contract security. Jim, I need to cash in some old favors. My family has been compromised, and I need resources beyond civilian investigation. Call me when you get this. Derek spent the next hour documenting his family's betrayal in precise detail: dates, times, financial amounts, witness statements. He created a comprehensive file that read like a military intelligence briefing, complete with threat assessments and strategic recommendations. At 3 a.m., Derek's secure phone rang. Colonel Mitchell's voice came through with the familiar authority Derek remembered from their military service. Derek, I got your message. What kind of compromise are we talking about? Derek explained the situation in the clinical language of military briefing. Enemy assets embedded in his family unit, coordinated psychological warfare against his daughter, financial theft disguised as marital assets, fabricated evidence designed to destroy his custody rights. Jesus, Derek, your own family. Not family anymore, Jim. Enemy combatants who happen to share my name. Derek paused. I need this handled quietly, but completely. No civilians harmed, but I want these people neutralized as threats to my daughter. I can have a team in your area by Monday. Corporate security consultants, completely clean backgrounds. What's your mission objective? Complete victory. I want Holly's affair exposed publicly. Connor Blaze's studio destroyed financially. The Crenshaw family's reputation ruined. And Trevor needs to learn what betraying family actually costs. Derek, you're talking about some serious scorched earth tactics. Are you sure this is the path you want? Derek looked around his office. Emma's paintings now safely secured while hidden cameras prepare to document Holly's return. Jim, they used my daughter as a weapon against me. They've spent years psychologically abusing an 11-year-old girl to support their financial schemes. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Understood. We'll discuss operational details Monday morning. Derek, stay sharp. People this manipulative don't give up easily. Derek ended the call feeling something he hadn't experienced since his military service. The calm certainty of a soldier who knew exactly what needed to be done and had the resources to accomplish it. At 4 a.m., Derek heard cars pulling into his driveway. Through his newly installed surveillance system, he watched Holly emerge from Connor's BMW, followed by Trevor from his own car. They spoke quietly on the front porch before Holly used her key to enter. Derek remained in his office, listening through hidden microphones as Holly and Trevor moved through the house. I can't believe he actually hit Connor, Trevor was saying. The whole country club saw it. It was perfect, Holly replied. Judge Crenshaw is filing restraining orders first thing Monday morning. Derek won't be allowed near Emma until the custody evaluation is complete. And how long will that take? Dr. Patricia Caldwell is handling the evaluation. She owes Marlena some favors from their divorce work. 6 months minimum, probably longer if Derek can test the findings. Derek's surveillance system captured every word while he took careful notes. Dr. Patricia Caldwell, another name for his investigation team to research. What about Emma? Trevor asked. She seemed pretty upset when we left. Emma will adjust. Once Derek's out of the picture, she'll realize how much better off we all are. Holly's voice carried a coldness Derek had never heard before. Besides, Connor thinks Emma has been manipulated by Derek's attention. She needs to learn independence. Derek felt his carefully controlled rage crystallize into something infinitely more dangerous. Holly wasn't just planning to take Emma away from him. She was planning to systematically destroy his daughter's self-confidence while positioning Connor as a replacement father figure. Mom, Trevor said quietly, what if Dad fights this harder than we expected? What if he doesn't just accept the custody arrangement? Holly laughed, a sound Derek realized he'd grown to hate. Trevor, your father is a control freak who just lost control of everything that matters to him. Men like Derek don't handle powerlessness well. He'll either break down or do something stupid that proves he's exactly as dangerous as we're claiming. And if he doesn't break down, then we make sure he does something stupid. Connor has friends who specialize in provoking people like your father. If Derek won't cooperate with his own destruction, we'll force him into it. Derek's surveillance equipment captured Holly's admission that she was planning to provoke him into further violence. Evidence that would prove the wedding incident was part of a coordinated setup. But more importantly, Holly had just threatened to use friends to manipulate Derek into actions that would justify taking Emma away permanently. Derek had heard enough. His enemies had revealed their complete strategy while believing they were safe in his own home. Holly, Trevor, and their accomplices had no idea they were now speaking directly into military-grade surveillance equipment that would document every word of their conspiracy. At 5 a.m., Holly and Trevor finally went to their respective bedrooms. Derek waited another hour before moving through his house, checking every camera angle and microphone placement. His home was now a perfect trap designed to capture every moment of his family's betrayal. Derek returned to his office and opened a new file on his computer, Operation Family Justice. For the next hour, he outlined a comprehensive plan that would systematically destroy everyone who had threatened his relationship with Emma. Phase 1. Document everything. Let Holly and her accomplices believe they were winning while recording evidence of their conspiracy. Phase 2. Coordinate with professional resources to investigate financial crimes, ethical violations, and potential legal charges against all involved parties. Phase 3. Strike simultaneously at every aspect of his enemies' lives: professional reputation, financial security, legal standing, and social relationships. Phase 4. Ensure Emma's safety and Derek's custody rights through overwhelming evidence of Holly's unfitness as a mother. Derek had no intention of fighting this battle in family court, where judges could be influenced by the Crenshaw family's connections. Instead, he would destroy his enemies so completely that custody of Emma would be academic. Holly would be too busy dealing with criminal charges and financial ruin to contest custody of anyone. As Sunday morning dawned, Derek felt the familiar calm of a soldier preparing for war. Holly, Trevor, Connor, and the Crenshaw family had made a fatal error in judgment. They treated Derek like a victim instead of recognizing him as a predator who'd temporarily forgotten how dangerous he could be. They wanted to see Derek lose control. They were about to discover what Derek Whitmore looked like when he maintained perfect control while destroying everything his enemies held dear. The wedding had been their victory. Now Derek would show them what his victory looked like. Chapter 7. The Unraveling begins. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable rain, the kind that turns expensive lawns into muddy reminders that nature doesn't respect human pretensions. Derek had been awake since 4 a.m., monitoring his surveillance feeds and reviewing the weekend's intelligence, while Holly slept peacefully in their bed, unaware that her every whispered phone conversation was being recorded. At exactly 7 a.m., Derek's secure phone rang. Colonel Mitchell's voice carried the crisp efficiency of military operations. Derek, my team landed 2 hours ago. We've established a command post at the Marriott downtown under corporate security consultation covers. What's your immediate tactical need? Full surveillance on all principals: Holly, Connor, Trevor, the Crenshaw family, and Vincent Torino. I want their communications monitored, their financial activities tracked, and their movements documented. Derek paused, watching Holly through his hidden cameras as she prepared coffee with unusual nervousness. Also, I need information warfare capabilities. These people destroyed my reputation publicly. I want theirs obliterated professionally. Understood. My tech specialist is already penetrating their digital communications. Connor Blaze's studio has remarkably poor cybersecurity for someone involved in financial crimes. Derek felt his first genuine smile in days. Financial crimes? Your friend Marcus Chun forwarded his preliminary findings. Connor Blaze Studios has been laundering money through art sales. Specifically, purchasing expensive pieces with cash, then reselling them to create clean transaction histories. The buyers are shell companies connected to offshore accounts. Derek processed this information, understanding immediately how it connected to Holly's conspiracy. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate? $3 million over the past 2 years. Your wife has been funding this operation through the secret credit cards she opened using your business as collateral. Derek felt the pieces clicking into place with mathematical precision. Holly wasn't just having an affair. She was financing a money laundering operation using Derek's business assets as collateral. When she divorced Derek and claimed half his assets, she'd be positioning Connor to access legitimate business funds for their expanded criminal enterprise. Jim, I want Connor Blaze destroyed by Friday. Financially, legally, and professionally. Can your team make that happen? Derek, we're not wetwork specialists. We do corporate security and intelligence. I'm not asking you to hurt anyone physically. I'm asking you to ensure that Connor Blaze's criminal activities receive appropriate attention from federal authorities while his business partnerships dissolve due to sudden revelations about his character. Colonel Mitchell was quiet for a moment. That we can handle. What about your immediate family situation? Derek checked his surveillance monitors, watching Holly speak on the phone in hushed tones while Trevor ate breakfast and ignored his mother's obvious distress. Holly thinks she has 6 months to complete Emma's psychological manipulation while I'm restricted by custody arrangements. She doesn't realize I'm documenting every moment of child abuse that occurs in this house. Derek's voice hardened. By Thursday, I want Emma safely in my custody while Holly deals with criminal charges that make custody hearings irrelevant. Understood. Derek, what about your son? Trevor's involvement in this conspiracy puts him in legal jeopardy too. Derek watched Trevor through the kitchen camera, noting his son's casual participation in conversation that assumed Derek's complete destruction. Trevor had chosen his side with full knowledge of the consequences. Trevor is an adult who made adult choices. He gets adult consequences. At 8 a.m., Derek's office phone rang with a call from Patricia Vance. Derek, Judge Crenshaw filed emergency custody restrictions this morning. You're prohibited from unsupervised contact with Emma pending a full psychological evaluation. The evaluation has been expedited. Dr. Patricia Caldwell will begin assessments Thursday. Derek smiled grimly. Holly's plan was proceeding exactly as his surveillance had captured her discussing. Patricia, I want you to request Dr. Caldwell's complete client history, financial records, and any previous relationships with the Crenshaw family. I also want immediate motions filed challenging Judge Crenshaw's authority to hear this case, given his family's financial interest in the outcome. Derek, challenging a federal judge requires extraordinary evidence of conflict of interest. Patricia, by Wednesday, I'll provide you with evidence that Judge Crenshaw's family has been actively participating in a conspiracy to defraud me of marital assets while manufacturing evidence to support custody restrictions. The conflict of interest won't be disputed. It will be criminal. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Derek, what exactly are you planning? I'm planning to protect my daughter from people who've been psychologically abusing her while stealing my money to finance their criminal enterprises. Everything beyond that is just legal housekeeping. Derek ended the call and immediately contacted Marcus Chun. Marcus, I need accelerated analysis on all financial connections between the Crenshaw family investments and Connor Blaze Studios. Also, Dr. Patricia Caldwell. Any financial relationships with parties involved in my case. Derek, I've been working on this since Saturday. The connections are extensive and clearly criminal. Judge Crenshaw's investment portfolio includes 3 shell companies that have purchased art from Connor Blaze at dramatically inflated prices. Dr. Caldwell has received consulting payments from Marlena Crenshaw's divorce practice, totaling $180,000 over the past year. Derek felt the satisfaction of a chess player seeing his opponent's moves 3 turns ahead. Marcus, prepare complete documentation for federal authorities. Money laundering, judicial corruption, professional ethics violations. I want charges filed against everyone involved by Thursday morning. Derek, evidence of this scope usually takes months to compile for federal prosecution. Marcus, I'm not waiting months while my daughter suffers psychological abuse from people who've been stealing my money to finance their crimes. Thursday morning, or I handle this situation through less official channels. Derek, we track Holly's vehicle to a motel outside city limits. She's accompanied by Connor Blaze and two unidentified males, likely the same men who were pressuring Connor yesterday. Emma appears unharmed but obviously distressed. Derek felt predatory calm replace panic. Holly had made the fatal error of running instead of fighting, transforming a complex custody dispute into a clear kidnapping case that would destroy any remaining sympathy for her position. Jim, what's our tactical situation? Local authorities have been notified through FBI channels. Kidnapping across state lines brings federal jurisdiction. Holly's motel is surrounded, but we're maintaining distance to avoid escalating the situation with Emma present. Derek was already dressing, his mind shifting into the operational mode that had made him lethal in military intelligence. Timeline for resolution. Holly's making calls to offshore accounts, trying to access funds that no longer exist. Connor's in full panic mode, demanding immediate evacuation that Holly can't provide. They'll either surrender within hours or attempt to run without resources. Derek understood the psychology perfectly. Holly had planned an elaborate long-term conspiracy but lacked contingencies for rapid exposure. Now she was trapped in a motel with a panicking accomplice, a terrified daughter, and no exit strategy. Jim, I want this ended before Emma suffers more trauma. What do we need for immediate resolution? Holly's phone calls are being monitored. She's trying to contact Vincent Torino for extraction assistance, but Vincent's already in federal custody for fraud charges filed this morning. Dr. Caldwell is refusing contact after her medical license was suspended yesterday. Holly's completely isolated. Derek felt satisfaction knowing his systematic destruction of Holly's support network was now protecting Emma from prolonged captivity. What about the Crenshaw family? Judge Crenshaw recused himself from all related cases yesterday after federal investigators questioned him about financial irregularities. Marlena Crenshaw's law practice is under federal investigation for money laundering connections. Ashley Crenshaw filed for emergency annulment of her marriage to Trevor this morning. Derek processed this information, understanding that Trevor's new marriage had collapsed within 72 hours of the ceremony Derek had financed. Where's Trevor now? Trevor's at your house, apparently waiting for you. Our surveillance suggests he's unaware of Holly's kidnapping attempt. Derek drove home with grim purpose. Trevor had participated in the conspiracy to destroy Derek's relationship with Emma, but kidnapping was a line Trevor hadn't crossed yet. Derek would give his son one opportunity to choose family over the criminal enterprise he'd supported. Derek found Trevor in the kitchen, scrolling through his phone with the casual indifference that had characterized his attitude throughout the conspiracy. Trevor looked up as Derek entered, his face showing neither surprise nor concern. "Dad, where's Mom and Emma?" Derek studied his son's expression, looking for signs of genuine ignorance versus calculated performance. Trevor's micro-expressions suggested real confusion, indicating he hadn't been informed of Holly's escalation. "Trevor, your mother kidnapped Emma early this morning. She's currently in federal custody pending charges for kidnapping, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Trevor's phone clattered to the kitchen table. "What? Dad, that's impossible. Mom wouldn't." "Trevor, I have months of surveillance footage documenting your mother's affair with Connor Blaze, their money laundering operation, and the conspiracy to fabricate evidence against me in custody proceedings. You've been an active participant in most of these crimes." Derek watched his son's face cycle through confusion, denial, and growing recognition as the full scope of Holly's activities became clear. "Dad, I didn't know about any kidnapping. I thought Mom was just trying to protect Emma from your anger issues." Derek felt a moment of genuine sadness for the son he'd raised to have better judgment than this. "Trevor, you witnessed me being provoked into violence by a coordinated setup designed to make me appear dangerous. You knew Holly was having an affair and using my money to finance it. You participated in psychological abuse of your 11-year-old sister to support Holly's custody claims." Trevor's face flushed with the angry defensiveness of someone confronting their own moral failures. Emma gets too much attention. You spoil her while I have to work for everything. Trevor, you graduated from Harvard Law School without student loans because I paid your complete education costs. You've received luxury cars, expensive vacations, and wedding financing that cost more than most people's houses. What exactly did you work for? Trevor stood from the kitchen table, his face contorting with years of suppressed resentment. I work for your approval. Everything I accomplished, you find some way to make it about Emma instead. Emma's art, Emma's intelligence, Emma's future. What about my achievements? Derek recognized the poisonous psychology Holly had cultivated in their son. Competitive resentment against his own sister, entitlement masquerading as victimhood, and the fundamental selfishness that had made Trevor complicit in child abuse. Trevor, Emma is 11 years old. She's not your competition. She's your sister who needed protection from people trying to hurt her. You chose to join her abusers instead of defending her. I chose Mom's side because Mom actually pays attention to my needs instead of obsessing over Emma like some kind of... Derek's military training kicked in before Trevor could finish the sentence that would have permanently ended their relationship. Instead of responding with violence, Derek simply stared at his son until Trevor's words died in uncomfortable silence. Trevor, you have exactly one opportunity to redeem yourself. Your mother has kidnapped Emma and is facing federal charges that will result in decades in prison. You can either cooperate with authorities to help rescue your sister, or you can continue supporting criminals who are traumatizing a child. Trevor's phone buzzed with a text message. Derek watched his son's face go pale as he read the message. It's from Ashley. She's filing for annulment. Her family's lawyers say I'm involved in criminal conspiracy and the marriage needs immediate dissolution to protect their assets. Derek felt no sympathy for Trevor's shock. Ashley's family discovered that Holly's conspiracy would expose them to federal investigation for judicial corruption. They're protecting themselves by abandoning you. Dad, what am I supposed to do? My marriage is over. Mom's apparently kidnapped Emma, and you're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. Derek looked at his son, the golden child he'd been so proud of, now revealed as someone willing to abuse his own sister for financial advantage, and felt only cold assessment. Trevor, you are some kind of criminal. You participated in conspiracy, fraud, and child abuse. The question is whether you're going to continue being a criminal or start being family. Derek's secure phone rang with an update from Colonel Mitchell. Derek, Holly's situation is deteriorating rapidly. Connor's demanding immediate evacuation that Holly can't provide. Emma's crying and asking for you. We need to move toward resolution. Derek's implicit threat carried the weight of military training and 15 years of investigating the worst humanity had to offer. Marcus understood immediately. Thursday morning. Complete documentation ready for federal authorities. At 10 a.m., Derek received a text from Jessica Chong. Connor meeting with financial advisor this morning. Seems panicked about something. Should I document? Derek typed back, document everything. How panicked? Jessica's response came immediately. Shredding documents panicked. Closing bank accounts panicked. Talking about leaving town panicked. Derek felt predatory satisfaction. Colonel Mitchell's team was clearly applying pressure faster than Connor could process. By evening, Connor would be desperate enough to make the kind of mistakes that would provide Derek with everything he needed to destroy Holly's conspiracy completely. Derek spent Monday morning in his office, reviewing surveillance footage of Holly's increasingly frantic phone conversations. She called Connor 6 times since breakfast, each conversation ending with obvious frustration. She'd also called Dr. Caldwell twice and Vincent Torino once. Coordination that Derek's equipment recorded in perfect digital clarity. At noon, Derek heard Holly's car leave the driveway. His surveillance team reported her driving directly to Connor's studio, where she spent 2 hours in heated conversation with Connor and 3 men Derek didn't recognize. Jessica Chang's photographs showed Connor pointing accusingly at Holly while the unknown men reviewed documents with obvious displeasure. Derek's secure phone buzzed with updates from Colonel Mitchell's team. Connor's offshore accounts have been frozen pending money laundering investigation. His art studio lease has been terminated due to irregularities in the property management company's background checks. Dr. Caldwell received notice that her medical license is under review for ethical violations. Vincent Torino's private investigation license has been suspended pending fraud allegations. Derek felt the systematic destruction of his enemies' professional lives beginning exactly as planned. By Thursday, none of them would be in positions to threaten Emma's custody or Derek's parental rights. But Derek's satisfaction was interrupted by a call from Emma's school. "Mr. Whitmore? This is Principal Anderson. Emma hasn't been picked up from school, and we can't reach Mrs. Whitmore." Emma seems quite distressed. Derek felt cold panic override his strategic planning. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Derek violated several traffic laws reaching Emma's school, where he found his daughter sitting in the principal's office with tear-stained cheeks and the kind of hollow expression Derek recognized from children who'd suffered trauma beyond their understanding. "Emma, sweetheart, what happened?" Emma threw herself into Derek's arms with desperate relief. "Dad, Mom was supposed to pick me up, but she never came. The school kept calling her, but she didn't answer." Principal Anderson approached with obvious concern. "Mr. Whitmore, we've been trying to reach your wife for 2 hours. This is highly unusual for Mrs. Whitmore." Derek understood immediately what had happened. Holly was so focused on managing her conspiracy's collapse that she'd forgotten to collect Emma from school, proving the exact child neglect Derek needed to document for custody purposes. "Principal Anderson, I'll take Emma home now. Has this happened before?" "Not exactly, though Emma has mentioned that pickup times have been inconsistent lately." Derek filed this information away as additional evidence of Holly's deteriorating parental responsibilities. "If there are any more pickup issues, please call me directly." Derek drove Emma home while she explained her growing anxiety about her mother's recent behavior. "Dad, Mom's been really angry lately. She keeps talking on the phone about money and custody and making people pay for things." Emma's voice was small and confused. "She said I might have to live somewhere else while you and her figure out grown-up problems." Derek felt his carefully controlled rage threaten to boil over. Holly was not only neglecting Emma's basic needs, but actively preparing her for separation from Derek, psychological manipulation designed to make the custody transition easier for Holly's plans. "Emma, I want you to understand something very clearly. You're not going to live somewhere else. You're not responsible for grown-up problems. And no matter what anyone tells you, you are loved and safe with me." That evening, Derek's surveillance captured Holly returning home at 8 p.m., 3 hours after Emma's school dismissal. She entered the house with the frantic energy of someone whose carefully planned life was collapsing faster than she could manage. Derek listened through hidden microphones as Holly called Emma downstairs for a conversation that revealed the true extent of her desperation. "Emma, we need to talk about your father. I know this is confusing, but sometimes parents make mistakes that hurt their families." Derek's surveillance captured every word as Holly began the final phase of her psychological manipulation, convincing Emma that Derek was dangerous while positioning herself as the protective parent. "Your father has been having problems controlling his temper. That's why he hurt Mr. Blaze at Trevor's wedding. Sometimes when people are sick, they can't help being mean to people they're supposed to love." Emma's voice was barely audible. "Dad's not mean to me. Not yet, sweetheart. But sometimes people change when they're under stress. That's why we might need to stay somewhere else for a while, just until your father gets the help he needs." Derek realized Holly was accelerating her timeline, probably due to pressure from Connor's collapsing situation. Instead of waiting 6 months for custody arrangements, Holly was preparing to disappear with Emma immediately. Derek activated his emergency protocols, sending alerts to Colonel Mitchell's team and his legal support staff. Holly had just crossed the line from conspiracy to potential kidnapping, transforming Derek's strategic warfare into an emergency rescue operation. As Monday night progressed, Derek prepared for the possibility that Tuesday morning might bring an empty house and a missing daughter. Holly's desperation had made her dangerous in ways Derek's military training had taught him to recognize and counter. The war Derek had planned to wage over weeks was about to be decided in hours. Holly had forced his hand by threatening Emma's immediate safety, But Derek had spent his career responding to exactly this kind of escalating threat. Tuesday would determine whether Derek's strategic planning had been thorough enough to save his daughter from people who'd proven they would sacrifice Emma's welfare for their own survival. Chapter 8. The Final Trap Springs. Tuesday morning shattered Derek's careful planning when he woke to find Holly's side of the bed empty and Emma's room vacant. The surveillance footage showed Holly entering Emma's room at 4 a.m., waking her daughter with whispered urgency, and leaving the house within minutes carrying pre-packed suitcases. Derek's secure phone was already ringing as he reviewed the footage. Colonel Mitchell's voice carried the calm efficiency of military crisis management. Derek covered the phone, addressing Trevor directly. "Your mother and Connor are trapped in a motel with Emma. Federal agents are surrounding the building. Holly's going to prison regardless of what happens next, but Emma's trauma level depends on how quickly this resolves." Trevor stared at Derek with the expression of someone whose entire worldview was collapsing. "What do you want me to do? Call your mother. Tell her you love Emma more than you hate me. Convince her to release Emma before federal agents have to extract her by force." Trevor picked up his phone with shaking hands, dialing Holly's number, while Derek listened to the conversation that would determine whether his son had any redeeming qualities remaining. "Mom, it's Trevor. I'm with Dad, and he says you have Emma at a motel. Mom, please listen to me. Whatever you and Connor planned, it's over. The FBI is surrounding you. You need to let Emma go before this gets worse." Derek could hear Holly's voice through the phone, frantic, angry, defensive, but couldn't make out her words. "Mom, I don't care about the money or the divorce or any of that. Emma's 11 years old. She's scared and she wants Dad. Please don't make this worse for her." The conversation continued for several minutes while Derek monitored updates from the federal team. Holly was clearly struggling with the reality that her elaborate conspiracy had collapsed within days of Derek discovering the truth. Finally, Trevor ended the call and looked at Derek with something approaching humility. "She's going to release Emma to federal agents. Connor's surrendering separately. Apparently, he wants to cooperate with authorities to minimize his own charges." Derek felt relief flood through him as his secure phone confirmed Trevor's report. Federal agents report Holly is exiting the motel with Emma. Child appears unharmed but distressed. Holly is being taken into custody without incident. Derek was already moving toward his car when Trevor called after him. "Dad, what happens to me now?" Derek paused at the kitchen door, looking back at his son. "Trevor, that depends entirely on what kind of man you choose to be from this point forward. You can spend the rest of your life making excuses for hurting your sister, or you can spend it earning her forgiveness." Derek drove toward the federal detention facility where Emma was being processed as a kidnapping victim, his mind already shifting from warfare to the careful work of helping his daughter heal from trauma that should never have happened. As Derek's car crested the hill overlooking the valley where Emma waited for him, he felt something he'd almost forgotten, hope that his family might still be salvageable, even if it would look very different than he'd ever imagined. The war was over. Now Derek faced the more challenging task of building a family worth protecting from the ashes of the one that had betrayed them both. Chapter 9. Justice and New Beginnings. 3 months later, Derek stood in family court Judge Martha Reynolds' chambers, holding Emma's hand while their attorney Patricia Vance reviewed the final custody arrangements that would officially end the most devastating and decisive period of Derek's life. "Mr. Whitmore," Judge Reynolds said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd seen every variation of family destruction. "Based on the evidence presented and the federal convictions of Holly Whitmore and Connor Blaze, I'm awarding you full custody of Emma with no visitation rights for the non-custodial parent." Derek felt Emma's hand squeeze his as the words made their new reality official. Holly would spend the next 15 years in federal prison for kidnapping, money laundering, and conspiracy charges. Connor Blaze had received 22 years for financial crimes dating back a decade before he'd met Holly. Dr. Patricia Caldwell had lost her medical license and faced professional fraud charges. Vincent Torino was serving 8 years for fabricating evidence in multiple cases. Judge Crenshaw had been forced to retire after federal investigation revealed a pattern of financial corruption spanning his entire career. Marlena Crenshaw's law practice had been dissolved, and she was facing disbarment proceedings. The entire Crenshaw family's social and financial empire had collapsed under federal scrutiny that revealed decades of judicial corruption and financial manipulation. Trevor had cooperated with federal investigators, providing testimony that helped convict Holly and Connor while earning himself immunity from prosecution. But cooperation with authorities didn't erase his participation in Emma's psychological abuse, and Derek had made it clear that rebuilding their relationship would require years of genuine effort. "Emma," Judge Reynolds said gently, "do you have any questions about these custody arrangements?" Emma looked up at Derek with green eyes that had regained much of their confidence over the past 3 months of therapy and unconditional support. "Does this mean Mom can never hurt me again?" "Emma, your mother will be in prison for many years. She cannot contact you, visit you, or influence your life in any way," Judge Reynolds explained with careful kindness. "Your father will make all decisions about your care and protection." Derek felt Emma relax against his side, the tension she'd carried for months finally dissolving into the security of knowing her father's protection was now legally absolute. As they left the courthouse, Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica Chong, who had become Emma's art teacher after Connor's studio was shuttered. Emma's painting won first place in the state youth competition. The judge called it emotionally sophisticated beyond her years. "Thought you'd want to know before the official announcement." Derek showed Emma the message, watching her face light up with pride that no one would ever try to diminish again. "Dad, can we get ice cream to celebrate?" "Emma, we can get anything you want to celebrate." They drove to their favorite ice cream shop, a routine Derek had established during Emma's recovery, small traditions that rebuilt her sense of safety and normalcy. Emma chose chocolate chip cookie dough, while Derek settled for vanilla, both of them sitting at their usual outdoor table where Emma could watch other families and remember what normal looked like. "Dad," Emma said between bites of ice cream, "I've been thinking about Trevor." Derek felt his pulse quicken. Trevor's name rarely came up in their conversations, though Derek knew Emma still struggled with her brother's betrayal. "What about Trevor? He sent me a letter apologizing for being mean about my art. He said he was jealous and stupid, and he wants to be a better brother." Emma paused, studying Derek's face carefully. "Do you think people can really change?" Derek considered his answer carefully. Trevor had indeed been writing letters. Awkward, guilt-ridden attempts to apologize for years of cruelty that had nearly destroyed Emma's confidence. Derek had read every letter before deciding whether Emma was ready to receive them. "Emma, I think some people can change if they're willing to do very hard work for a very long time. But change has to be proven through actions, not just words. Trevor says he's going to be a public defender helping children in bad family situations. He thinks maybe he can help other kids the way he should have helped me." Derek felt a complicated mixture of skepticism and hope. Trevor's career change from corporate law to child advocacy could be genuine redemption or elaborate performance designed to earn forgiveness he hadn't truly earned. "What do you think about that, Emma?" Emma considered carefully, demonstrating the thoughtful intelligence that Holly had tried so hard to suppress. "I think it's good if he helps other kids, but I'm not ready to see him yet. Maybe someday, but not yet." Derek felt pride in his daughter's emotional wisdom. At 11 years old, Emma was learning to protect herself while remaining open to the possibility of forgiveness, a balance that many adults never mastered. "Emma, you never have to see or forgive anyone until you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's okay too." That evening, Derek sat in his office surrounded by Emma's artwork, paintings that had progressed from melancholic isolation to vibrant celebrations of life as her confidence returned. The hidden surveillance equipment had been removed months ago, replaced by family photos that showed Derek and Emma building new traditions together. Derek's secure phone rang with a call from Colonel Mitchell, who had become a regular friend since their successful operation. "Derek, thought you'd want to know. Connor Blaze was found dead in federal prison yesterday. Apparent suicide, though the investigation is ongoing." Derek felt no sympathy for Connor's fate. "Any connection to Holly?" "None that we can determine. Connor was facing additional charges for financial crimes in 3 other states." Apparently, his operation was more extensive than we initially discovered. Derek processed this information without emotion. Connor Blaze had chosen to traumatize a child for financial gain. His ultimate fate was a consequence of choices that Derek hadn't influenced. Jim, thanks for the update. How's your team handling civilian consulting work? Better than expected. Turns out there's significant demand for military-grade security analysis in corporate settings. We're expanding operations based on referrals from your case. Derek felt satisfaction knowing that his personal war had created opportunities for good people while destroying those who deserve destruction. After ending the call, Derek found Emma in the living room working on homework with the focused intensity she brought to everything that mattered to her. Emma, I need to ask you something important. How do you feel about the possibility of us moving somewhere new? Maybe somewhere with better art programs and more opportunities? Emma looked up from her math homework with excitement. Really? Where are you thinking? There's a private school in Vermont that specializes in arts education. They've offered you a full scholarship based on your competition win today. Derek paused. It would mean leaving this house, this town, all the places where difficult things happened. Emma's face lit up with the kind of joy Derek had spent months trying to rebuild. Dad, could we really start completely over somewhere new? Emma, we can do anything we want. It's just you and me now, and we get to decide what our family looks like. Emma abandoned her homework and threw herself into Derek's arms with the complete trust of a child who knew she was unconditionally loved and protected. I want to start over, Dad. I want to go somewhere no one knows about Mom or Trevor or any of the bad things that happened. Derek held his daughter close, feeling the last remnants of his old life dissolve into the promise of something infinitely better. 6 weeks later, Derek and Emma stood in the driveway of their new home in rural Vermont, watching moving trucks unload their carefully selected belongings. The house was smaller than their Millbrook Heights mansion, but surrounded by mountains and forests that offered Emma unlimited inspiration for her artwork. Emma would start 7th grade at the Arts Academy in the fall, where her talent would be nurtured by teachers who understood that creativity required emotional safety to flourish. Derek had sold his investigation firm to Marcus Chun for enough money to ensure Emma's complete financial security through college and beyond. Dad, Emma said as they watched movers carry her easel toward the house, do you think we'll be happy here? Derek looked at his daughter, confident, talented, radiant with the security of knowing she was cherished, and felt certainty about their future for the first time in years. Emma, I think we're going to be more than happy. I think we're going to be exactly who we were meant to be. As the Vermont sunset painted the mountains in colors that reminded Derek of Emma's most beautiful paintings, he understood that victory wasn't just about destroying his enemies. True victory was building something better from the wreckage they'd left behind. Holly, Trevor, and their accomplices had tried to break Derek's family by attacking what he loved most. Instead, they'd given him the motivation to become the father Emma deserved while eliminating every threat to her happiness. Derek Whitmore had never lost a case that mattered to him. His most important case, protecting his daughter's future, was now closed with complete success. The war was over. The family Derek had fought to save was finally safe, finally whole, and finally free to become everything it was meant to be. In the end, justice had been served exactly as Derek had promised. Ruthlessly, completely, and without mercy for those who had chosen to threaten an innocent child. Emma was safe. Derek was vindicated. Their enemies were destroyed. Victory was absolute. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Hello, and welcome to Infidelity Tales Lab. Your support means everything to us. We'd love to know, which geographical location are you joining from today? At home? On the go? Share with us below. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Golden Cage. Dominic Foster surveyed the sprawling estate he'd built from nothing. At 52, he was the picture of self-made success. Owner of Foster Security Solutions, one of the country's premier private security firms. The six-bedroom colonial mansion in Westchester County spoke of wealth, but to Dominic, it increasingly felt like a museum he merely maintained rather than a home. 23 years of marriage to Vanessa had yielded 2 children, Trevor, now 21, and Heather, 19. What had begun as a whirlwind romance had calcified into something performative. Vanessa, once a struggling art student when they met, had transformed into a social climber obsessed with status and appearances. Dominic watched from his study as she directed the landscapers with imperious gestures. At 47, Vanessa remained striking, dark hair expertly colored to hide any gray, her figure maintained through religious devotion to personal trainers and cosmetic procedures. She caught his eye through the window and gave a practiced smile that never reached her eyes. His phone buzzed. A text from Ray Donovan, his oldest friend and head of operations at Foster Security. Need you to look at the Northlake contract. Something doesn't add up. Dominic appreciated Ray's thoroughness. They'd served together in Army intelligence before Dominic founded the company, making Ray his first hire. 15 years Ray's senior, Dominic had always been somewhat of a mentor to him, though Ray's own brilliance had quickly made them equals. "Dad!" Trevor's voice came from the doorway. "Got a minute?" Dominic turned to see his son, tall but slouching, intelligent but directionless. Trevor had Dominic's build, but Vanessa's delicate features and perpetual look of dissatisfaction. "What's up, son?" Trevor fidgeted with the sleeve of his designer sweater, another of Vanessa's purchases. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the internship at the company." Dominic nodded cautiously. He'd offered Trevor a position in the business months ago, hoping to instill some work ethic, but Vanessa had shot it down, insisting their son focus on his connections at his Ivy League school. "I want to do it," Trevor said. "This summer. Your mother won't like it." Trevor's jaw tightened. "I'm not asking her permission." Dominic felt a rare flash of pride. Perhaps there was some backbone in the boy after all. "Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. You'll start in operations with Ray." After Trevor left, Dominic turned back to the window. Vanessa was gone, and a black Lexus was pulling out of the driveway. Her weekly charity committee meeting. 4th one this month. He checked his watch. 3 p.m. on a Thursday. Odd time for a committee meeting. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Patricia," he said to his executive assistant, "cancel my meetings tomorrow. Tell them something's come up." Chapter 2. Suspicions. The exclusive Westridge Country Club hummed with Friday afternoon activity. Dominic, dressed casually in a polo and slacks, spotted his target immediately, Bradley Whitman, the club's tennis pro. Athletic, mid-30s, with a practice charm that Dominic instantly disliked. According to the club schedule conveniently accessible through his membership portal, Vanessa had standing private lessons every Friday at 2 p.m. for the past 3 months. Dominic watched from the terrace as Whitman coached an elderly couple, all smiles and encouragement. No sign of Vanessa today. "Interesting. Mr. Foster, what a pleasure to see you during the day." Martin Coleman, the club president, approached with hand extended. "Martin," Dominic shook his hand firmly. "Just taking a break from the grind. Beautiful facility you've got here. All thanks to members like you. I've been meaning to call about the security upgrade proposal you sent over." "No rush," Dominic waved casually. "By the way, my wife raves about the new tennis pro." "Whitman, right?" Martin nodded. "Bradley's been a fantastic addition. Very popular with the ladies' clinics." "I bet he is," Dominic said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Vanessa's been taking private lessons, but I've never seen him play." Martin looked momentarily confused. "Oh, I wasn't aware Mrs. Foster had private sessions with Bradley. He's generally booked solid with the group clinics." Dominic felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. "My mistake. Must have misunderstood." After making his excuses to Martin, Dominic drove to Foster Security's headquarters, a nondescript building that belied the cutting-edge technology within. He bypassed the main entrance and took the private elevator to his office suite. Ray was waiting, concern etched on his face. At 37, Ray had the build of someone who never let go of military discipline. Close-cropped hair, watchful eyes, and a perpetual readiness that came from years in the field. "You look like hell," Ray said bluntly. "Need a favor?" Dominic replied, closing the door. Off the books. Ray straightened. Name it. I need surveillance on Vanessa. Discreet, comprehensive. Phone, email, movements. Ray didn't flinch. Timeline. Yesterday. This about the Lexus that's been parked 2 blocks from your house every Thursday. Dominic raised an eyebrow. You knew. Noticed it doing my weekly perimeter check on your property last month. Black Lexus, registered to a shell company. Thought it might be corporate espionage targeting you. And you didn't tell me because was gathering intel before bringing it to you. Driver is Bradley Whitman, tennis pro at your club. Dominic absorbed this, a muscle working in his jaw. Show me everything. Ray pulled out a tablet. There's more. Trevor came to me last week. Said he was worried about his mother. Asked if I'd look into some texts he saw on her phone. And you didn't tell me this either? The kid was looking out for you, Dom. I told him I'd handle it. Dominic felt a twist of something between pride and sorrow for his son. What else am I missing? Ray hesitated. There's money moving out of your joint accounts. Small amounts, but consistent. To a holding company registered in her maiden name. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was calculated. Dominic leaned back, feeling a cold clarity he hadn't experienced since his operational days. Give me everything. And Ray? Not a word to anyone. Chapter 3. Evidence Mounts. Heather Foster's surprise visit home from college brought a temporary reprieve from Dominic's investigations. His daughter had always been his weakness, brilliant, independent, and possessing a moral clarity that reminded him of himself before life had hardened him. They sat on the back patio, Heather animatedly describing her research project while Dominic listened with genuine interest. She was studying psychology, fascinated by the human capacity for self-deception. People build these elaborate realities, Dad, she explained, completely disconnected from truth. And they'll fight to preserve those illusions, even when confronted with evidence. Dominic smiled thinly. Speaking from experience there, Hummingbird, she rolled her eyes at the childhood nickname. I'm just saying, sometimes the hardest person to be honest with is yourself. Their moment was interrupted by Vanessa's arrival, arms laden with shopping bags. Her surprise at seeing Heather seemed genuine, quickly masked with effusive greetings. Darling, why didn't you tell us you were coming? She embraced Heather, who returned it stiffly. Spontaneous decision. Just wanted to see Dad. The slight emphasis on Dad wasn't lost on Dominic. Interesting. Vanessa's phone chimed. She glanced at it, a fleeting expression crossing her face before she tucked it away. I've got to make a call. Business for the foundation gala. After she left, Heather's expression darkened. She's still seeing him, isn't she? Dominic froze. What are you talking about? Heather gave him a look of exasperated pity. Dad, come on. Bradley Whitman, the tennis pro. Trevor told me he was worried. How long have you known? Since Christmas. The way she'd check her phone, slip away for errands. Then Trevor found some texts. She leaned forward. Dad, there's more. Trevor overheard her talking to Bradley about money. Your money. Dominic's expression remained neutral, a skill honed through decades of negotiation. Why didn't you tell me? We weren't sure at first. Then, she hesitated. Mom's been saying things to Trevor. That you're pulling away, becoming obsessed with work. That you're probably having affairs yourself. Dominic felt a flare of rage. She's been poisoning your brother against me? Trying to, but Trevor didn't buy it. That's why he wanted the internship, to get closer to you, away from her influence. That night, after a tense family dinner, Dominic reviewed the files Ray had sent him. Photos of Vanessa and Bradley together, financial records showing systematic withdrawals, and most damning, a recorded conversation between them discussing after the divorce. He'll never see it coming, Vanessa's voice said. Bradley, we're talking millions. All those years of putting up with his controlling behavior, his obsession with his business, his neglect. I deserve half of everything. Bradley's voice was smooth, calculated. Just make sure the foundation transaction goes through first. Once that money's moved, it'll be nearly impossible to trace. The foundation, Vanessa's pet project, supposedly helping underprivileged youth with art education. Dominic had contributed significant funds, both personally and through the company. He pulled up the foundation's financial records, which Ray had helpfully accessed. Sure enough, There were irregularities, large sums transferred to program development that showed no corresponding programs. His phone buzzed with a text from Ray. "We need to talk." "Not on the phone. Tomorrow." Dominic stared out at the manicured lawn, the expensive landscaping, the pool that Vanessa had insisted on renovating last year. All symbols of a life that was built on quicksand. 23 years of marriage. 2 children. And beneath it all, a calculated betrayal that cut to his core. Not just the affair. Affairs were common enough in their social circle. But the systematic deception, the financial theft, the manipulation of his children. In his years running security operations around the world, Dominic had seen the worst of humanity. But this was personal. His phone buzzed again. A separate text, this time from an unknown number. The children deserve to know the truth. Saturday. Family barbecue. Be ready. Chapter 4. Machinations. Saturday morning found Dominic in Ray's modest apartment, reviewing the final pieces of evidence. The apartment served as an unofficial secure location, free from potential surveillance. "Whoever sent that text knows about the affair," Ray said, pacing. "Could be someone from the club, could be one of Whitman's other conquests. Or it could be Bradley himself," Dominic mused. "Setting up some kind of confrontation. What's your play here, Dom?" Dominic leaned back, his expression unreadable. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want." Ray looked skeptical. "You're walking into a trap." "No." Dominic's smile was cold. "I'm setting one." He outlined his plan. Ray listened, his expression shifting from concern to grudging admiration. "That's ruthless, even for you." "They chose the battlefield," Dominic said simply. "I'm just changing the rules of engagement." Back at home, preparations for the annual Foster family barbecue were underway. Vanessa directed caterers with military precision, seemingly oblivious to the storm gathering around her. "There you are," she said as Dominic entered the kitchen. "The Havershams are bringing their new son-in-law. Be nice." "Of course," he replied pleasantly. "By the way, I invited a few colleagues. Hope it's all right." She frowned. "This is supposed to be friends and family, Dominic. Ray's practically family. And Patricia's been with me for 15 years. Vanessa's disapproval was clear, but she merely sighed. "Fine. Just make sure they understand this isn't a networking event." As she left, Dominic caught Trevor watching from the doorway. "Everything ready for Monday?" Dominic asked. Trevor nodded. "Ray's got me set up with security protocols and basic operations." "Good. After today, things might get complicated." Trevor's expression hardened. "Because of Mom and Bradley?" Dominic studied his son. "You know more than you've let on. I know she's planning to leave you. I know about the money." Trevor's voice was tight. "I know she tried to convince me it was your fault." Dominic placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "After today, everyone will know the truth. Are you prepared for that?" Trevor straightened, looking more like Dominic than ever before. "I'm on your side, Dad. Always have been." The barbecue began at noon. The Foster estate filled with the upper echelon of Westchester society. Old money, new money, and those desperately pretending to have money. Vanessa was in her element, gliding between groups with practiced charm. At precisely 2 p.m., Ray arrived with Patricia, both dressed casually but observant. They circulated separately, positioning themselves strategically around the property. At 2:30, Heather arrived with a surprise guest, her psychology professor, Dr. Abigail Winters, a renowned expert in family systems therapy. Dominic welcomed them warmly, introducing Dr. Winters to key guests while Vanessa looked on with thinly veiled annoyance. The trap was set. Now, they just needed the prey to arrive. Chapter 5. The Barbecue Incident. By late afternoon, the barbecue was in full swing. Dominic maintained the perfect host facade, all while watching the invisible clockwork of his plan turning. Trevor had positioned himself near the bar, subdued but observant. Heather and Dr. Winters engaged with various guests, their conversations seemingly casual, but deliberately steering toward topics of trust and betrayal. At 4:15, Dominic's phone buzzed. A text from Ray, black Lexus approaching. Dominic moved to the grill, taking over cooking duties from the caterer with a genial wave. "Let me handle this. Everyone loves my steaks." From this position, he had a clear view of the front drive. Right on cue, a black Lexus SUV pulled up. Bradley Whitman emerged, looking confident in designer casual wear that screamed, trying too hard. He carried a small gift bag and strode toward the party as if he belonged. Dominic watched as Vanessa spotted Bradley, her expression flickering through shock, fear, and then forced composure. She moved to intercept him, but Bradley had already been greeted by Heather, who, as instructed, was loudly introducing him to guests as Mom's special friend. The whispers began immediately. Vanessa reached them, her smile brittle. "Bradley, what a surprise. I didn't realize you were coming." "Wouldn't miss it," Bradley replied smoothly. "Your husband was kind enough to invite me. Something about wanting to meet his wife's tennis instructor." Vanessa's eyes darted to Dominic, who raised his beer in a mock toast from across the lawn. The color drained from her face. As planned, Ray approached, clapping a hand on Bradley's shoulder. "Mr. Whitman, glad you could make it. Why don't you come meet some people?" Ray steered Bradley toward a group that included 2 foster security employees who moonlighted as bouncers at exclusive Manhattan clubs. Their size alone was intimidating, but their friendly demeanor put Bradley at ease, exactly as intended. Vanessa, recovering her composure, made a beeline for Dominic. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hissed. "Having a barbecue," Dominic replied mildly. "Isn't that what you wanted? The perfect family hosting the perfect party. If you're trying to embarrass me." "I'm not trying to do anything," he interrupted, flipping a steak with practiced ease. "But if I were you, I'd be very careful about what happens next." The tension between them was interrupted by Trevor's arrival with a tray. "Mom, Dad asked if you could make sure everyone gets served." His tone was flat, challenging. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "That's what the caterers are for. They're busy with the dessert setup," Trevor replied. "Besides, isn't this what you always say? The hostess should always serve her guests personally. Isn't that what makes you better than everyone else?" The barb landed precisely. Vanessa took the tray with a tight smile. "Fine." As she moved through the crowd, serving food, Dominic gave Trevor a subtle nod. Trevor moved into position near his grandmother, Vanessa's mother, Eleanor, a widow with razor-sharp social instincts and a deeply judgmental nature. Eleanor had never approved of Dominic, seeing him as beneath her daughter despite his success. The feeling was mutual. Dominic found her pretentious and manipulative. Trevor engaged Eleanor in conversation just as Vanessa approached with the tray. What happened next went exactly according to plan. At the family barbecue, wife made my son serve food to everyone and said, he should be grateful we let her come. Like father, like son. Vanessa snapped loudly when Trevor pointed out she was now doing exactly what she'd forced him to do at previous gatherings. Eleanor seized the opportunity. Mother-in-law mocked his clothes, criticizing Trevor's casual attire as typical of his father's lack of standards. The entire party grew quiet at the public family discord. In the uncomfortable silence, a new player entered the scene. A tall man in a tailored suit emerged from a second black SUV that had arrived without notice. He walked directly to Trevor, ignoring the staring guests. "Kiddo, ready for your surprise?" he said loudly, handing Trevor an envelope. Everyone stopped chewing. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The man turned to face the crowd, his presence commanding. "Allow me to introduce myself," he said. "Nathan Wells, private investigator. I believe Mrs. Foster and Mr. Whitman know why I'm here." Chapter 6, The Unveiling. The aftermath of Nathan Wells's dramatic entrance unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Wells, a former FBI forensic accountant now working for Foster Security, had compiled a devastating dossier on Vanessa and Bradley's affair, complete with financial malfeasance. As guests quickly made excuses to leave, Dominic invited the key players to his study. Vanessa and Bradley, looking trapped, Eleanor, visibly shaken, Trevor and Heather, standing firmly beside their father, Ray and Nathan, controlling the perimeter, and Dr. Winters, observing with professional detachment. "What is this?" Vanessa demanded, her composure cracking. "Some kind of intervention? Think of it as a reckoning," Dominic replied calmly. He nodded to Nathan, who opened a laptop. "Mrs. Foster, Over the past 8 months, you've diverted approximately $2.3 million from the Foster Family Foundation to shell companies controlled by Mr. Whitman. You've also withdrawn $750,000 from joint accounts, laundering the money through your art acquisition business. Bradley shifted nervously. This is ridiculous. We haven't done anything illegal. Actually, Ray interjected, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy are quite illegal. As is blackmail. Blackmail? Eleanor echoed, looking at her daughter. Vanessa, what have you done? Nothing. Vanessa snapped. This is Dominic trying to avoid a divorce settlement. He knows I'm entitled to half of everything. Dominic's laugh was hollow. Is that what Bradley told you? That you get half? You turned to the tennis pro. Did you also tell her about the other married women you've defrauded? Or about your outstanding warrants in Connecticut and New Jersey? Bradley's face drained of color. That's a lie. 4 affairs with wealthy married women in the past 5 years, Nathan continued, pulling up documents. Each ending with mysterious financial losses for the families involved. No charges filed. Too embarrassing for the husbands. Until now. Trevor stepped forward, opening the envelope Wells had given him. Bank statements, he said, handing them to his mother. From your foundation. Transfers to offshore accounts in Bradley's name. Vanessa stared at the papers, then at Bradley. You told me those transfers were for property investments. For our future. Bradley's charming facade cracked. Vanessa, don't listen to them. They're trying to turn you against me. The foundation was supposed to be my legacy, she whispered. The one thing that was mine. It was never yours, Dominic said quietly. It was our children's future you were stealing. And mine. Heather turned to Dr. Winters. Is this consistent with the pattern you described? The narcissistic exploitation? Dr. Winters nodded. Textbook case. The foundation provided both external validation and a vehicle for financial manipulation. Eleanor, always quick to salvage a situation, turned on Bradley. You preyed on my daughter. Used her. That's rich coming from you. Mother, Vanessa snapped. You encouraged me to find someone more suitable than Dominic for years. A better man, yes. Not a con artist. Eleanor retorted. Dominic raised a hand, silencing the room. Here's what happens next. Vanessa, you will sign over your rights to the foundation. You will withdraw your divorce filing. Yes, I know about that too. You will return every penny you've diverted. And if I refuse? Vanessa challenged, though her voice lacked conviction. Then Nathan provides his evidence to the district attorney, the IRS, and the FBI. Your mother loses her standing in the community she values so much. You face criminal charges. And Bradley. Dominic smiled coldly. Bradley faces his 3rd strike. Federal time. Bradley lunged toward the door, but Ray was faster, blocking his path with casual menace. One more thing, Dominic continued. You both signed comprehensive NDAs. This stays within these walls. Why would you protect her reputation? Dr. Winters asked, her academic curiosity evident. After such betrayal, Dominic glanced at his children. Because public humiliation would hurt Trevor and Heather. And despite everything, they're what matter to me. The negotiations continued late into the night. By dawn, agreements were signed, accounts were rebalanced, and the immediate crisis was contained. But for Dominic, this wasn't the end. It was merely the opening move in a much longer game. Chapter 7. Strategic Retreat. 3 months after the barbecue incident, an uneasy détente had settled over the Foster household. Vanessa, humiliated but pragmatic, maintained appearances while quietly seeking therapy at Dominic's insistence and expense. Bradley Whitman had disappeared from their lives, reportedly taking a coaching position at a resort in Arizona. To the outside world, the Fosters remained an enviable power couple. Privately, they lived separate lives under one roof, an arrangement Dominic made clear was temporary. I'm keeping the peace for the kids, he told Ray during their weekly security briefing. But make no mistake, this isn't forgiveness. You could have destroyed her completely, Ray observed. Why the restraint? Dominic's expression was unreadable. Immediate satisfaction versus long-term strategy. I want her to rebuild a sense of security before I pull the rug out. Cold, Ray commented, though without judgment. Calculated, Dominic corrected. Bradley was just a symptom. The real betrayal goes deeper. Trevor had flourished at Foster Security, showing an aptitude for operations that surprised everyone except his father. Heather had returned to college but remained vigilant, calling home more frequently and developing a closer relationship with Dominic. Eleanor, perhaps sensing which way the wind was blowing, had become uncharacteristically supportive of her son-in-law, inviting him to lunches and praising him publicly. Dominic accepted her overtures with polite distance, all while activating Phase 2 of his plan. Nathan Wells had continued his investigation, digging deeper into Vanessa's past and uncovering patterns that predated their marriage. "Your wife has secrets that go back to college," Nathan reported during a secure meeting at Foster Security. "Before you met her." Specifics, Dominic prompted. "A sealed juvenile record and connections to people she claims not to know, including Bradley Whitman. They attended the same high school. Different years, but definite overlap." Dominic absorbed this. Their meeting at the club wasn't coincidence. Unlikely. And there's more. The foundation wasn't her first attempt at financial diversion. There was a charity auction 5 years ago. Funds unaccounted for. The Children's Hospital benefit, Dominic remembered. She chaired the committee. Precisely. And guess who provided consulting services? Let me guess. A company connected to Bradley. Nathan nodded. Through his sister. Different last name. She's married. That's why it didn't flag initially. Dominic leaned back. They've been working together for years. Right under my nose. It appears so. Find a sister. And anyone else connected to their operation. Leave no stone unturned. That evening, Dominic attended a charity gala with Vanessa. She had been nervous about public appearances since the barbecue, but Dominic had insisted, citing the importance of maintaining their social position. "You look beautiful," he told her as they entered the ballroom, his compliment genuine despite everything. Vanessa had always been skilled at presenting the perfect facade. "Thank you," she replied, searching his face for signs of his true feelings. "Dom, I've been thinking, maybe we should consider counseling. Together, I mean." He smiled, squeezing her hand for the benefit of watching eyes. "One step at a time. You focus on your healing first." The false hope in her eyes was exactly what he wanted. Let her believe reconciliation was possible. Let her rebuild her sense of security. It would make the final fall that much more devastating. Chapter 8. Pieces on the board. 6 months after the barbecue, Dominic implemented the next phase of his plan. He announced his semi-retirement from day-to-day operations at Foster Security, appointing Trevor as director of special projects with Ray as his mentor. "It's time for new blood," he declared at the company's quarterly meeting. "And who better than family to carry forward our values?" The move was celebrated in industry publications, with profiles of Trevor as the rising star following in his father's footsteps. Vanessa, seeing her son's success, attempted to rebuild their relationship, inviting him to lunches and sending thoughtful gifts. Trevor maintained polite distance, following his father's example of strategic patience. Dominic, meanwhile, made a show of pursuing personal interests, golf memberships, fishing trips, wine collecting. To the casual observer, he appeared to be enjoying a well-earned step back from professional life. In reality, he was orchestrating the most complex operation of his career. Nathan Wells had located Bradley's sister, Melissa Hargrove, a financial consultant living in Boston. Through careful surveillance, they discovered she managed a network of shell companies that had processed funds from not just the Foster Foundation, but 6 other charitable organizations across the Northeast. "It's a sophisticated operation," Nathan explained, showing Dominic the evidence. "They target wealthy couples with specific vulnerabilities. Bradley initiates romantic connections with the wives, while Melissa creates the financial infrastructure to siphon funds." "And Eleanor? What's her role?" Dominic asked. Nathan hesitated. "That's the most disturbing part. We found communications suggesting she's the one who identifies potential targets, including you 15 years ago." Dominic felt cold fury settle in his chest. "My mother-in-law has been working with them from the beginning." "It appears so. She receives a percentage of every successful operation." The betrayal was even deeper than he'd imagined. Not just his wife, but his mother-in-law had seen him as nothing more than a mark, a wealthy target to be manipulated and exploited. "What about Heather and Trevor?" he asked, his voice tight. "Are they?" "No," Nathan said firmly. "All evidence suggests they were kept completely in the dark. In fact, based on the communications we've intercepted, Eleanor has been pressuring Vanessa for years to keep the children uninvolved and unaware." Small mercies, Dominic thought. With the full picture emerging, Dominic finalized his counterstrike. He called a meeting with his most trusted team, Ray, Nathan, and now Trevor, who had earned his place in the inner circle. "We move in 3 weeks," he announced, simultaneously against all targets. "What about Mom?" Trevor asked, his voice carefully neutral. Dominic studied his son. "Your mother made her choices. Are you prepared for the consequences?" Trevor nodded, his expression hardening. "She used us as props in her scheme. Used me to maintain her cover. I'm ready." The plan was comprehensive. Financial, legal, and personal destruction of everyone involved in the scheme. Not just Bradley and Melissa, but the entire network they'd built, including Eleanor. As for Vanessa, Dominic had something special in mind. "She values 2 things above all else," he told Trevor privately. "Her social standing and her illusion of moral superiority. We'll strip her of both." The final pieces fell into place when Heather came home for spring break, bringing with her research she'd been conducting with Dr. Winters on psychological manipulation within family systems. "It's fascinating, Dad," she explained over dinner, carefully avoiding looking at her mother. "How people can compartmentalize their morality, convince themselves they're the hero of their own story, even while causing immense harm." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. "This sounds rather dark, darling. I thought psychology was about helping people." "Oh, this will help people," Heather replied coolly. "Victims of narcissistic abuse deserve to understand what happened to them. Don't you agree, Mom?" The table fell silent. Dominic watched his daughter with pride and a touch of sadness. She had grown harder through all this, more like him. That night, after everyone had retired, Dominic received a text from a number he didn't recognize. "All assets in position." "Green light?" He replied with a single word, "Execute." Chapter 9, Checkmate. The dismantling of what came to be called the Foundation Network made headlines across the financial and social elite circles of the Northeast. In a coordinated sweep, federal agents arrested Melissa Hargrove and 4 associates on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. Bradley Whitman, attempting to flee his Arizona resort upon hearing the news, was apprehended at the Mexican border with $150,000 in cash and a false passport. Eleanor suffered a very public humiliation when IRS agents arrived at her country club during ladies' luncheon, serving her with search warrants and asset freezes. The carefully curated reputation she'd maintained for decades crumbled in a single afternoon. Through carefully placed leaks and strategic cooperation with authorities, Dominic ensured that his own family's involvement was characterized as that of victims who had assisted in exposing a criminal enterprise. Foster Security was praised for its role in the investigation, with Trevor highlighted as instrumental in bringing the perpetrators to justice. But for Vanessa, Dominic had designed a far more personal reckoning. On the morning the story broke, he invited her to his study. She entered cautiously, having seen the news reports. "Is this your revenge?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. "Using the legal system to destroy my mother and Bradley?" "Justice isn't revenge," Dominic replied. "But no, that's not my revenge. This is." He handed her a thick folder. Inside were printouts of emails, text messages, and recorded conversations spanning their entire marriage. Evidence of her systematic manipulation, her contempt for him behind his back, her strategic use of their children as props in her carefully constructed facade. "I've known who you really are for longer than you think," he said quietly. "Not just the affair with Bradley or the foundation money. I've known about the others. The lies. All of it." Color drained from her face. "How?" "I'm a security expert, Vanessa. Did you really think I wouldn't have safeguards in place?" He shook his head. "But I wanted to believe the best. That's my failure." She rallied slightly. "You can't prove intent. Anything in there could be interpreted multiple ways." True, he conceded, which is why the final decision isn't mine. He pressed a button on his desk phone. They're ready for you. The door opened to reveal Trevor and Heather, both solemn-faced. The children deserve to know the truth, Dominic said, echoing the anonymous text from months ago, a text he had sent himself to set his plan in motion. All of it. For the next hour, Trevor and Heather reviewed the evidence their father had compiled. Text messages where Vanessa mocked Dominic to Bradley. Recordings where she discussed using Trevor as leverage in divorce proceedings. Emails where she dismissed Heather's accomplishments as useful for our family image. Vanessa's attempts at denial, then justification, then tearful apologies fell on deaf ears. By the end, she sat defeated, stripped of her last offense, the love of her children. You've lost everything that matters, Dominic told her when they were alone again. Your mother will likely die in prison. Bradley is facing 20 years. Your social circle knows exactly what kind of person you are. And our children have seen the real you. What happens now? She asked hollowly. You'll receive a fair divorce settlement. Enough to live comfortably, but modestly. You'll sign over full custody of Trevor and Heather, though they're adults now anyway. You'll leave Westchester. In fact, you'll leave the Northeast entirely. The house in Santa Fe should suit you. Isolated. Quiet. You're banishing me. I'm setting you free, he corrected. Free from the burden of pretending to be someone you're not. Free from the family you never really wanted. Isn't that what you've been working toward all these years? She had no answer. 6 months later, Dominic hosted another family barbecue. The guest list was smaller, trusted colleagues, Trevor's new girlfriend, Heather, and Dr. Winters, who had become something of a surrogate mother figure to both children. As Dominic grilled steaks with practiced ease, Ray approached with a beer. Quarterly reports show we're up 30%, Ray reported. Trevor's security protocol overhaul is being adopted industry-wide. Dominic nodded with satisfaction. He's exceeded my expectations. You know Vanessa's appealing the settlement. Let her. The prenup is ironclad now that we've established criminal intent. Ray studied his old friend. Was it worth it? The long game. Dominic looked across the lawn, where Trevor and Heather were laughing together, stronger and more resilient for having weathered the storm. He thought of Vanessa, isolated in Santa Fe, her carefully constructed world reduced to ashes. Of Eleanor, serving the first year of a 12-year sentence. Of Bradley, making license plates in federal prison. Justice isn't about worth, Dominic replied. It's about restoration of balance. They took from me my trust, my family's security, years of my life lived under false pretenses. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted understanding. Understanding. I wanted them to understand exactly who they had chosen to betray. Dominic's smile was cold, but satisfied. Now they do. He raised his beer in a silent toast to the future, one built on his terms, with the people who had proven their loyalty. The man who had arrived in a black SUV at last year's barbecue